Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Become a Villain in Highschool DXD Part 10. Before we start, please go support RageRevan for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. Chapter 28. Relationship by Bonds. Haidu residence, 9:30 p.m. Issei walked across the residence, seeing how a lot of things have changed. The house that used to annoy and torment the hell out of him, now it was all peace and quiet. Furthermore, his actions resulted in the whole supernatural world, whether it be heaven or hell, or Olympus or Kailash, no matter where he was, he created chaos, created fear and dread among its citizens. He also remembered that ever since the supernatural was suffering, his life has become better. Anyone that tormented him either was dead, was away, or was afraid of him. It doesn't matter anyway, since the supernatural would soon be eliminated and true unity would be formed after that. A world where peace would remain for a very long time, a world where humanity won't be toyed or used ever again. Issei saw the lack of care the supernatural had for humanity. They say that they don't look down on humanity, however, their actions say a very different story. Reminiscing about the past, huh? Drake asked, as Issei responded, well, things have changed, the supernatural is in turmoil. There was a time, I was cursed, no one believed or trusted me. They are only trusting and appeasing me cause I am their only hope. The pillar that they so desperately believed in, was a complete fraud. And worse, he did not falter until the very end. I mean, he reminded me no matter what I did, the supernatural will still be the same. Issei continued with a shrug, not caring about what would happen to the factions. He knew one thing, that things will soon go into his favor. He also noticed that even the girls have started to develop feelings for him, however he wondered whether they would join him willingly. He wondered whether both Leisha and Sekiruuyetei would join him like Marana did. He knew that Sekiruuyetei and Leisha have loved ones in the underworld, in their case, their parents. He wondered whether they would have the will to kill them if the time comes. Well, speaking of, how much time do you think I will be able to achieve that form? Drake spoke. Considering you are planning to combine the full power of the Great Red's flesh, Office's powers, my power, your power and the book's integration, you are basically going for a form that surpasses true Diabolo's dragon. It would take some more training if you want to use it without incorporating any side effects. Drake explained as he continued. Furthermore, this form was meant for the next threat, as you are planning to deal with anything that would threaten the peace in the future. Drake spoke, understanding Issei not using this new form to fight off against the factions. Indeed, from what I am aware, we don't really know if there are beings stronger than Great Red, so this form is like a precautionary measure. Even with the factions gone, we can't rest, and you and I both agree on this, right? Issei spoke as Drake responded. I do, and I am going to ask Hades about why RageRevan wanted to unleash Trahexa, and for what cause if he wanted to create chaos. He and his Cow's brigade were strong enough to do that. Drake spoke, as Issei was ready to teleport when he heard a sniffle. He looked around to see Artemis's room. Walking upstairs, he saw the door was open. He entered in, as Artemis failed to sense his presence, due to what she was going through. The door creaked, which made the goddess of hunt understand that someone was present. She rubbed her tears and looked at the person, surprised to see who it was on the door. It was her lord, Issei Haidu. Lord Issei? Artemis asked, surprised. It didn't take a genius to realize that she was crying, judging by her tear-stained cheeks and her sad expression. Issei exclaimed in worry and anger. You are crying, tell me, who did this? Was it Zeus? Artemis shook her head as she spoke. No, it was not him. Artemis spoke, putting her head on his shoulder as she spoke. I am referring to my brother Apollo, my mother Leto, and my aunt Hestia. Artemis spoke with sniffles as she continued. I am sorry, I don't want to say this. Issei, understanding the situation, pulled the goddess towards him and gave her a hug. He had an idea of what Artemis was going to say. Artemis, if you don't tell me, how can I help you? Issei spoke with concern, causing the goddess to melt into the hug. She started to tear up. Artemis then spoke with sniffles. Issei rubbed her back, trying to calm her down, as he spoke. Take your time, I am not in a rush to go anywhere. Issei waited for her to calm down. He wanted to calm her down before actually asking her what is the problem. Artemis and Issei separated after the goddess calmed down. She then spoke sadly. I am sorry, but if I ask you this, you may have to change some plans. Artemis, please tell me, you are making me worried now. Artemis looked away as she spoke. I can't watch my siblings Apollo and Hestia and my mother die. As much as I don't mind Zeus suffering a fate worse than death for what he did to me and Athena, I am sorry, I can't watch them die, especially not like this. I am sorry. Artemis looked away as she teared up even more. Issei wiped her tears off as he spoke with a smile. Artie, it just shows how much you care for your loved ones. Bonds like these don't go easily. I mean, it took me months to get over my past love of my life before I fell for Nyx. I can understand that you don't want to see them die. Artemis looked at him as he continued talking. But you know, right, aside from Hestia, no one else were visiting you, right? Artemis nodded as she spoke. Then tell me what to do. I am not sure what I should do. I don't want to serve the Greek faction, but I can't watch my loved ones die, so please Ice, tell me what would you do in my situation. Issei shook his head and spoke with a sigh. I am not the best person to say this, but from what I know the Olympic faction is in complete turmoil, things are bad, but all I know, the Olympic faction has a low chance of recovery. Issei's words made Artemis nod. I may consider Hestia, but Leto and Apollo, they are off charts, as much as I hate to say it. The Greek did not change, no matter what happened. Issei spoke seriously, as Artemis nodded, she understood Issei's hatred towards her former faction. She equally had that much hatred as well, especially for Zeus, especially after abandoning her completely. Zeus still holds anger and hatred towards me, since he believes that I am the reason why the two of you hate me, Issei continued as Artemis nods. She knows about this and was disgusted by what Zeus thought of her lover and lord. She hated him and only wanted him to burn to the ground. But you shouldn't worry, I will be there for you whenever you need me, Issei spoke with a cheeky grin, since if I don't, what kind of a boyfriend would I be? Artemis lost her sad tone and cracked a smile as he speaks. Look at your smile, your face looks so good when you smile, Artemis. Issei spoke with a smile, causing her to have a blushing smile as he spoke. See, look, you feel so much better now, don't you? Artemis rubbed her tears and spoke with smile. Yeah, Artemis spoke with a smile as she rested herself on Issei's shoulder. Issei pulled her closer, making the goddess of hunt even more comfortable. She felt even more safe. Issei then asked, if it is alright, may I ask a question? Issei spoke as Artemis responded. Sure, Issei then asked. What was your reason to not hate man, but to detest them to the point of no return, like you always avoided staying close a few feet to a man, so much so, from what I have heard you turned one random dude into deer and got them killed, just cause he peeped on you, why? Artemis flinched when she remembered that. She remembered her actions when she hated turned even someone that lost her virginity, who was a part of her followers, into a bear for getting pregnant. I had a fear, I feared being powerless, you know, my first love tried to gape me, Issei widened his eyes and exclaimed in shock. But Artemis moved from his shoulder and looked Issei in the eye, decided to not hide anything from her love. She knew one thing, Issei is not the type to take advantage of her. It is true, Orion tried to gape me, I feared him, he turned me into a powerless human using a god-slaying necklace which he made me wear by gaining my trust. I was unable to do anything. If it was not for Apollo saving me, he would have truly done the deed. Issei lost his shocked look and became angry. Gape was something he primarily did not tolerate, that is just messed up, no matter what gender does it. Where is that giant? Issei spoke with a growl as Artemis spoke with disgust. I and Apollo killed him, he begged for mercy, but I showed him none. I see, that I guess gives you a reason to hate men, by why the concept of marriage itself? Issei asked as Artemis shook her head and spoke. You see, Ice, back in the day marriage was not how it is in modern day. Women in Greek marriages often were controlled by men, so much so that they couldn't even head outdoors due to fear of being treated as a pariah. Artemis spoke with sadness. Before this would anger her, now things have changed. She has changed her worldview on men. I see, that makes sense, but I am not going to lie, what you did was taking things too far. Artemis looked down in sadness on Issei's words as he continued. I may be considered a hypocrite, but that is what I am telling. I understand, Ice, but you know I am now tolerating them now. Issei nodded, happy with her progress, as she continued. I was also considering letting marriages into my huntresses that are under me as well as my followers. Artemis spoke with a smile, as Issei responded, I know. I am not sure if my followers would accept given their vows, but if things do work out, I can see them truly happy. Ice, you showed me how love changes people, myself included. Artemis spoke with a genuine smile. If there is anyone she trusted, it was Issei, amongst a very few people. I guess that is development. I am really proud of what you have become, Artie. If you had met your past self, she would be surprised by what you have become. Artemis chuckled as she spoke. I guess she would call me a fool for falling for the charms of men. Artemis looked at Issei as Issei spoke. See, the man-hating goddess changed into the man-tolerating goddess. Issei spoke mockingly as Artemis responded with a pout before laughing. Moo, I am not that bad. Seeing Artemis laugh made Issei smile. He wondered on how he will get Hestia to his side. She was the only Greek goddess aside from Athena and Artemis that Issei tolerated. Artemis was happy, and seeing her happy made Issei happy as well. A few minutes have passed. Artemis had fell asleep on the bed, with Issei sitting on the chair nearby. Issei could have slept with her to comfort her. But he chose not to, since he felt like he was taking advantage of her. Sleep well, Artie, you need some rest. Issei was getting up ready to walk away, however he heard something. He looked to see Artemis speak in a sad tone. Please don't go. Issei noticed her murmur in her sleep. He was surprised by this, as he looked at her and thought. What should I do? Issei wondered. He had a feeling that something would happen, something bad. Don't be a hussy and sleep next to her. Drake spoke in a mocking tone, as Issei retorted in an angry tone. What, I am not being a hussy. Drake was not affected as he responded. Oh really, then I dare you to sleep next to her and not chicken out, Issei growled in response as he spoke. Fine, I will sleep next to her. Drake nodded, happy that his plan was a success. Issei went next to her and carefully slept next to her without disturbing her. He looked at her sleeping face, she immediately hugged whoever was in front of her and brought him closer to her body. Issei spoke with a blush, as Artemis snuggled herself to him, she started to smile, pulling herself towards him subconsciously. Issei smiled as he hugged her as well, she slept properly in a long while, as Issei spoke. You must have been really alone, huh? Issei spoke with slight sadness, Zeus did not think twice to abandon her and Athena. He never did see Artemis's suffering, only once he saw her cry, after that she never showed this side of hers. But worry not, I will be by your side until the very end, and I will love you till the very end, Issei spoke as he continued, I think a power nap won't sound bad, what's the worst that can happen? Scene change. Artemis's room, 11 p.m. Issei was holding Artemis, she soon woke up as she rubbed her eyes, she looked in surprise and blushed, she was completely red seeing what she was doing. She was hugging Issei like a teddy bear. She was frozen, as moments later even Issei managed to wake up. So how did you sleep? Issei asked with a smile, as Artemis stammered, she looked away with a blush and spoke. It was good, Artemis stammered, she snapped out of her blush and made a genuine smile, as she spoke. Thank you, Ice, Artemis genuinely smiled, however their moment was interrupted by someone entering the room. Both Issei and Artemis woke up, as they looked at the girls who joined in, they were Quinella, Charlotte, Nyx and Elizabeth. They all had smiles on their faces, however it was too sweet. Issei was fearful on what would happen, as Nyx spoke. Ara, you were here, darling, Nyx spoke. Issei knew that she was jealous, as he decided to tell them. It is not what it looks like, Issei spoke, as Artemis still pulled him towards her, making a pout towards them, worsening the situation, as Quinella responded with a smile. Then do tell us, the girls radiated their jealous aura as Issei spoke. Look, I was just here when she needed me the most, I mean, all I did was be by her side, that is all, I can assure you that nothing bad has happened, Issei spoke with a smile, trying to assure the situation. The girls seemed to calm down a little, as Nyx spoke for them. We should have known you would be like this, your nature is known to help others, Nyx spoke with a genuine smile, as Charlotte continued. We knew about the God faction, and we feared something bad might have happened to you, so when we saw you were absent in your room, like you usually should have been, we feared the worst, Elizabeth then spoke with sadness. We feared losing you, we scoured every room, only to find you here, we were happy, and then we saw you sleeping with her, not that we are against it, but we were worried sick for you, Issei realized the gravity of the situation, he knew one thing, these girls cared for him more than anything else. He knew many of these girls had abandonment issues, like Nyx in case of her brother Erebus, whose whereabouts were unknown even to this day, or even Elizabeth who was abandoned by Michael. I am sorry, I did not know those gods cared you girls so much, well, I should have known, Issei spoke with a sigh as all girls looked at Issei wondering what he would do next. I will prepare a barrier to prevent any intrusions from entering, this needs to be dealt with as soon as possible, Issei spoke seriously, as he got up from the bed, while putting Artemis down, Nyx then spoke. I will also come with you, Issei nods as he speaks to the other girls. Hopefully, it shouldn't take much long, so I think all of you should also join, the others nodded, as they all headed to the Highschool rooftop to set up a barrier. Scene change. Rooftop, Highschool residence, 12 a.m. Issei and the girls were on the rooftop, ready for what Issei will do next. He activated God slaying and rune magic. The first was to maintain the barrier to prevent any intruders from not entering in, and the rune magic would let some specified presences be allowed, like Athena, Nyx and Artemis. He doubted if any other gods lived in this place. Alright, it's done, Issei spoke seriously, as he spoke, I believe the only ones able to break this barrier are mostly Hindu gods like Indra and Trimurti, but, aside from that, I doubt that if any other gods want to come here, let alone break them. I guess that is fair, Nyx responded with a smile, feeling a bit assured, as he continued. Either way, this is a temporary, since we will be leaving this place soon, Elizabeth then asked. Why? Issei responded. When we reveal ourselves, we can't share the same place with our enemies, since they could attack us, we will either stay at Hades' domain, or we will be at Malak's base. I have already started to design living quarters there. So I have already starting to plan for what comes next, Issei spoke seriously, as Elizabeth asked. I wanted to ask, what will happen to Sekiruuyetei and Leisha? Elizabeth asked, as Issei responded. They will have to make a choice, either me or the devils. Issei spoke coldly, he did not want to hurt them, but he will let them have a choice. Athena is highly likely to join him, since her corruption is close to done. He was going to also give her a choice, since he did not want to hurt her as well. I see, Charlotte spoke, as he continued. They have families, which I doubt they would turn against them, but if they do, they will be more than welcome in this world. Issei's words earned nods from the girls, as he asks. Quinella, can you give me the holy nail I had given for Roswas? Quinella nods as she speaks. Sure may, I ask why though? Quinella asked as Issei spoke. Gondal wants to deal with Roswis herself. It was a request she wanted me to do, and I believe that she will join us. Issei's words made Quinella nod as she gives him the nails that were meant for the former Valkyrie. I believe we all should rest. Artemis, you will sleep with me from now on, sounds good. Artemis nodded with a blush as everyone retires to their rooms to rest for the night. Scene change. Time skip. The next day. Haidu residence, 10:30 am. Issei and the girls were sitting in Issei's room having their breakfast, since here it was much more peaceful, and the others will not bother him at all. This was actually a good idea, thanks Liz. Issei spoke pointing to Elizabeth, who only blushes in response as she speaks. I knew that you hated those hypocrites, that is why I asked to be here. Elizabeth spoke while stammering, as Nyx continued. Well, this may be small, but it will do for us, and I am glad even Athena and Marana decided to join. Both Marana and Athena nodded in agreement as they responded. I am really annoyed with the Phoenix's whining, like hey, what do those teenagers call nowadays? Oh yeah, like a little bitch. Athena spoke in annoyance. Language aside, I have to agree with the goddess of wisdom, they are really annoying, always wanting to annoy our day. Marana spoke with equal annoyance, as she then asked, speaking of which, where is Gabriel? Issei responded to her. Right now she is settling in a hotel nearby. I managed to put a seal on her aura so that no supernatural can detect her presence. She can still use her powers, though Issei spoke with a neutral tone, earning a nod from Marana. Anyways, Nyx, girls, I wanted you to talk about. Nyx spoke with a smile. We know about Miyuki, you promised her a date. Quinella then spoke with her own smile. It was us that pushed her to confess her feelings to you. Issei then exclaimed and asked, what? Why did you not tell me this? Charlotte then answered his question. It's simple, we thought it would be nice if she does it herself, and Ice, you better take good care of her, okay? Charlotte and the girls minus Marana and Athena were smiling sweetly, causing Issei to gulp and nod as he speaks. I will. Issei spoke with a sigh as he was happy the girls sharing a sisterhood. Sure, they would get jealous, but they always looked after each other like their very own. Issei was happy with this. The relationship was nothing like when the girls were dating his brother Haidu. Say, I wonder what are Malak and the boys doing? Artemis asked as even the others wondered what they are up to. Probably playing some poker, since they often aren't interested in anything but battling. Elizabeth spoke with a sigh. Well, let us eat our food. I believe we should be getting back to work as soon as possible, since we have some things we need to do if we need to prepare ourselves against the god tribe and the hero village. Issei spoke, earning some nods from the girls as they finish off their lunch to prepare themselves for what comes next. Scene change. Dimensional Lost training room, 11:30 am. Issei was training in his room created by the Dimensional Lost, in his regular balance breaker, dodging and facing off against several copies that had the power of ultimate class and beyond beings. The primary reason for this was so that he could reach a power that even no one can stop him, no matter how much they try. Alright, just a little more focus. Issei spoke seriously as he scanned his surroundings. As he spoke to Drake, you know what you need to do, right buddy? Boost 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 boost. Issei's armor was supercharged. He fired a concentrated reddish-green blast at the entities that he had created by the Annihilation Maker. They were anti-monsters that could fight toe-to-toe with Satan-class beings and even low-god-class beings. This was only made possible only due to augmenting his gear to perfection with a book of conceptual records. In just mere minutes they were all annihilated without a problem, no trace of them were remaining. However, Issei was not done, as he used Annihilation Maker. His goal was to push himself even further. This time, he created beings that surpassed the strength of even super devils like Ajuka or Surziches. Issei channeled the power of both Great Red and Office into his body. He also started to overload the book's power into his body. Issei started to feel bloated as he started to cough up. Drake then shouted, "Partner, you must get their power out of your body, it can't take it." Drake was worried, however Issei knew this was the only way to achieve true power. "No Drake, I will succeed, I won't give up here, I can't give up here." Issei spoke angrily. He saw the anti-monsters charging attacks. He looked at them, seeing the faces of Ajuka, Surziches and many more devils that looked down on him, that hated him, that were disgusted at him. I hate them with all my heart, I despise their existence," Issei shouted, growling, remembering his hatred for them. He was not going to show them any mercy. "I will kill them, I will wipe their whole existence from this planet," Issei shouted as he started to boost with the power of infinity. He did not stop, he refused to stop, he fell on his knees due to the pressure. His hatred did not falter, however. He stood up despite the pressure. His anger surpassed even that of when Shiva opened his third eye of destruction. His hatred was so strong that even the anti-monsters feared what would happen. Issei shouted as the anti-monsters fired the blast as they reached Issei, causing multiple and several explosions to strike Issei at once. The dust explosion was massive. The good thing was that Issei was in a separate dimension. The dust settled down as it revealed an armor of Issei. It was completely different as it looked almost like a mechanical suit from a mecha anime, with green eyes and a helmet which was hexagonal in shape. The helmet was red in color. It had two shoulders that were triangular and extended even above his head. The gems were almost everywhere on his arms and limbs. The armor was a mixture of red and silver. It was however miniature compared to its original power. Holy shit, Issei felt the power. This was a part of the full potential he had achieved after years of training. He did not spare any single day to train the power of infinity and the power of dream in his body. His training increased after he realized the factions don't care for him. He wanted to surpass them in power. He did not care how long would it take. He focused on mastering Diabolo's Dragon DXD and then True Diabolo's Dragon DXD. This form surpassed the two of them, as Drake spoke. Holy shit indeed, but you proved yourself to even surpass your limits even further. I theorized that this armor can even take on Great Red, and Office Drake exclaimed in joy. He knew that his form only lasts for 10 minutes, due to his current status, as he spoke with a slight sad tone. However, you only have 10 minutes in this form, even if you have gained the full power of Infinite from Office, and full power of Dreams from Great Red's flesh, that resides in your body. Your body is not adapted to this form. Issei smiled underneath his armor and responded. That is fine, now let's end this scarlet annihilation. Two cannons emerged from the shoulders of the armor, charging a blast, as Issei unleashed a dark crimson energy blast that had the power of infinite in it, similar to Infinity Blaster. However, unlike that, it also had the power of dreams as well. This alone completely annihilated the anti-monsters, leaving no trace of them. Issei looked at his work of art, impressed by the training he did. He dispelled his armor and fell down, breathing heavily. The armor still needed some works, but that is something he is willing to do. He decided to return back to his dimension, where he saw in the training room that even the girls are training themselves to no bounds. He saw the clash between two of his lovers, Artemis and Elizabeth. Both the girls were not holding back. Artemis fired several arrows, which were blocked by Elizabeth's light spears. Despite this, Artemis sensed her hesitation as she spoke. Don't hold back, Liz, I want to see what you are capable of. Elizabeth did not want to hurt someone she deemed as a sister. But, I don't want to hurt you, Artie. Artemis shook her head as she spoke. No, I won't be injured. Show me your strongest move. I want to see you push your limits. Elizabeth seemed to be reluctant as she took a deep breath as she spoke. Alright, let there be light. Elizabeth's eyes changed to a deep purple color, primarily due to the dark light. Elizabeth fired off drill-shaped projectiles, which were coated with a deep purple color, giving illusion of diamond-plated coverings. Issei was surprised by how adept Elizabeth has become using dark light. He was worried that Artemis might get hurt too much, however he had faith that the goddess won't go down like this, only when she is critically intervened she would split up. Issei saw as Artemis readied her bow. She was a skilled marksman. As the drills were getting closer, she fired at all of them, destroying them in just a few shots. The piercing arrows even managed to destroy some of the aligned drills. Using the smokescreen as an advantage, she completely vanished, and due to her being skilled in hiding her presence, if there is anything Artemis is good at, it is able to sneak up on someone and eliminate her targets. Elizabeth looked at the smokescreen, trying to locate where Artemis is, only to be aimed with a bow from behind as she was ready to fire. The Dark Angel was filled with dread. Her power level was Satan class, but she was nowhere near a being like Artemis, who was stated to be God class being. Even a regular God class being surpassed that of a Satan class being, however it was situational, but even then, Artemis surpassed Elizabeth. I guess that settles it. Elizabeth was breathing heavily. She felt like nothing more than a prey as she felt Artemis from the behind. It scared her to no bounds as she spoke with a smile. You did well, but I believe we should take a small break, right, Liz? Elizabeth nodded as Artemis put her bow down. She was happy with her progress. Issei watched the whole scene with a smile as he turned to see Quinella, Charlotte and the two Mochas training together. Mochayura was a close-quarter fighter, exemplified by her punches and kicks that were aimed at Quinella as she struggled to block them. Using magic to fight is one thing, it is beneficial for us vampires as well, but hand-to-hand combat is beneficial to face off against enemies when you run out of it. Mochayura explained to Quinella as she tried to use regular blocks as she was eventually overwhelmed and a roundhouse kick from Mocha was enough to take her down. You have the strength and blood of a Satan descendant, you should be able to use it without restrictions, you are going to need more training. Quinella spoke understanding. Mochayura's serious words were getting to her. She would be needing hand-to-hand combat and facing off against some of her future enemies. Mocha Amok was also done with her. Unlike her sister, she was much gentler as she was focused in letting Charlotte master the basics, unlike her sister, whose methodology is to gain experience and master the basics during that time. See, your fist should be at the right angle to impact the opponent the most, your focus will be damaging the spot you aim at, and one of the weakest points of any humanoid body is its groin, always remember this. Charlotte nods as she focuses on her punches. Issei turned around to see Nyx training Miyuki in magic, strengthening her abilities. You need to focus your attack on one point. Water can be considered as the most powerful weapon if you are able to get the right speed and precision. Nyx explained, as Miyuki nodded. So if I get the correct speed, I can cut through anything, right? Nyx nods as she continues. Indeed, and I know you can do it, Miyuki. Nyx spoke with a smile, as Miyuki nodded and responded. I won't disappoint you. Nyx. Miyuki continued her training for a while, as Issei then started clapping, gathering their attention. I hope you guys have a moment, I need to talk about something important. Issei's voice has gathered some attention as they all looked at him, as Nyx spoke for everyone. Go ahead. Issei sat down for a while and spoke. I did it. Nyx and the other girls were surprised as Artemis spoke. Did what? Issei answered a question. I had a breakthrough in my current power. Issei spoke with a smile, as they all were surprised, as Nyx exclaimed while rushing to him and hugging him. Congratulations, darling. The other girls soon joined him, all expressing their happiness for him. Some wanted to see the armor, as Issei spoke with a sigh. I am sorry girls, the armor is extremely dangerous and I can only maintain or use it after a while. Some of the girls were saddened, however, before they could do anything. Issei sensed something. Something wrong? Quinella asked as Issei spoke. It seems like we have some unwanted visitors. Issei spoke coldly, knowing that someone entered his barrier. Only God and Buddha class beings are repelled due to the God Slayer magic, meaning that someone was repelled. Scene change. Outside, Haidu residence, 1 p.m. Issei and the girls look to see a monkey yokai, who appears around the same height as a kindergarten, at least a meter tall, covered in golden fur, wearing a monk's cassock, a wrinkled creased face and black skin, wearing prayer beads around his neck and a golden headband around his forehead. He was Sun Wukong first generation. Issei saw him on the ground, he was holding his behind as he rubbed it in pain, as he spoke. The barrier, but how? Sun Wukong asked in surprised. Issei also noticed that he was accompanied by Tobio Iqs and some others as well. I will explain. The visitors looked at Issei as he continued to speak. No god except the residents of this house are welcome. But why? Tobio asked in curiosity as Issei responded to him. I have my reasons. Reasons that you don't deserve to know. Issei spoke coldly as Sun Wukong responded in a sad tone. Boy, you have some really strong power. Issei narrowed his eyes, with Tobio speaking. We only need to know, who was it that attacked you yesterday? From what the factions have sensed, it was a god, but it did not belong to any other faction. Issei sighed and spoke. Even if I did tell you, it would do you no good. Now goodbye. Issei and the girls headed to their home. Tobio and Sun Wukong tried to stop him, but they only watched as Issei and the girls went inside. He did not want to ruin his mood dealing with them. Let it be Tobio, he doesn't want us near him, and you know what will happen if we provoke him, right? Tobio nods, albeit sadly and with a little bit of fear. After Issei killed Ajuka, none of the faction leaders showed up to his place due to fear. The only one that visited him was Hestia, but this was primarily due to Artemis and Athena staying at his place. The leaders tried to convince one of his fiancées to convince him, but none of them responded. They didn't care whether they would be potentially branded as traitors, as they refused to support those that wouldn't think twice to throw them away and not visit them when they needed him the worst. That is why they are here to talk to him themselves despite their fear of him. They knew that their chances of dying is present, but they had to take the risk, but it also resulted in no avail. Defeated Tobio and the rest returned back to the underworld. Scene change. Valak's base, 1 p.m. Valak, Vader, Grievous, Lefolia, Gondal and Kalani were watching the god tribe's layout. They were deducing their next step on how they can deal with this faction. Alright, Issei states we have to deal with not only the god tribe, but those that are affiliated with the hero village as well. Malak spoke seriously, as Vader responded. There are even those that have managed to seat themselves in of government places that are funding these unworthy beings. We must eliminate those weeds in the government. Grievous spoke with disgust as Vader responds. We must assassinate or eliminate them. From what we heard from our spy Furia is that they are all in hiding due to our assault in Vatican. This earned nods from most of the group as they remembered the information she had given them. The Furia also told them their names, identities as well as their current locations, thanks to Issei converting her into one of his allies. Her being a spy allowed them to gain a lot of information about the god tribe and the hero village, along with the infiltrators. So master, should I eliminate these people myself? Lefolia asked, ready to draw her blade for Issei against his enemies. His enemies are her enemies as well. You may, but when the time comes, you will need to eliminate several in a very short time. Due to many government officials dying will cause a lot of turmoil in the human world. Malak spoke seriously. As once we are done eliminating them, we must erase all memories of those who knew of our targets. The good thing is that they are not that influential in the public's eyes like a president or the leader of the political party, however they are still in positions like the upper echelons of the intelligence agencies and the military of the US government. Malak continued as La Folia nodded in response. So what do you want to do? How do we stop them from using humanity for their own purposes? Gondal spoke seriously. She never liked the god tribe before when she heard of them from her former superior Auden, but their actions against Lord Issei recently angered her. She knew that they won't stop until they manage to get Issei by their side. I would say that we orbital bombard the agency, our chances of success are 75%, and if we ambush them, it would increase to 90%. Kalani spoke analytically, as Vader responded. Not to mention, the heroes that had infiltrated European government and even had insight on the church faction of the three factions had gone into deep hiding, as there are traces of missing posters of those people. Vader spoke as Malak responded. The gods have asked them to remain hidden, it's a shame that we know exactly where they are. Malak spoke remembering all the information the goddess of Furia was able to collect for them, as Vader responded. That is good, so once we wait for Lord Issei's orders, we can begin our plan of decimating the god faction, right? Malak nods as he continues. Indeed, Vader. Malak then looks at La Folia and speaks. La Folia, your job is to locate these infiltrators and eliminate them, leaving no trace of your crimes. I will give you the necessary information about them. We will begin their hunt tomorrow. As you wish, my master. La Folia walked away as she got ready, leaving the others in place. Gondal then asked, once we are done, what should we do with the Furia? Malak spoke with a neutral look. I believe her powers may be useful, and it would be better if she would join us willingly. Any firepower would be welcome. Malak spoke with a smile, as Gondal nodded satisfied by the answer. They then prepare for their assault on the god tribe. Chapter 29. The darkest night. The next day, Malak's base, 9:30 p.m. Issei and the rest were preparing for their assault on the god tribe. As they all looked down in the surface, they remembered on how La Folia were successful in assassinating all the heroes that had infiltrated the governments. Many mass deaths in one day would have terrified the world. This was primarily due to heroes of the hero clan being present in the governments of the countries of the world. However, there was no fear or terror, primarily due to their memories of the said people being wiped out. Nobody knew or remembered them, and it would only be a matter of time before those people will be properly replaced by those that are loyal to the government and humanity, and not to some gods that look down and use humanity. Issei and Malak's actions were justified, humans that were blinded by divinity and worked against humanity for some gods that desire to stay hidden. They did not deserve to live, so they had to be eliminated. Thanks to La Folia, Vader, Gondal, and Grievous, all of them were killed precisely when they least expected it. Some were killed by sniper shots, while the others were killed by the four, which was relatively easy, since most of them were high to ultimate class. Now it was back to dealing with the main threat, that being the hero clan and the god tribe. They all must be eliminated if they want to make sure that they no longer are a threat to their future plans, nor do they try to use humanity for their purposes again. Issei looked on at the sleeper agents, that being Yasaka, Asia, Gasper, Penemu, Akeno and Valerie. The latter was easily lured by Gasper and then turned by Quinella into a sleeper agent. She was captured with ease before and now it was much convenient given that Quinella used Gasper for her purposes. Issei then commanded. Your job will be to protect the generals. I don't care if you die, your whole purpose is to serve the droid faction. Do I make myself clear? The sleeper agents all speak in confirmation. Yes, Lord Issei. Issei nods as he walks out. The sleeper agents prepare themselves, while the inner selves had no choice but to accept their fate. Their position as Issei's slaves is certain, and they will never be free. Issei reached out, where he saw Nyx and his other generals waiting for his orders, as he speaks. I will take a small portion of the army and head to the hero clan village in Japan. Right now they must be at their weakest. I will deal with Jin Taoju personally. Issei spoke seriously as he continued. Malak, your job is to make sure Adagio and the rest of his 10 gods are dead. There will be no mercy. You must make sure of that you will be having full command of the rest of the army. Malak nods as he speaks. As you wish. Malak spoke with a bow. They have all been well briefed about the plan, as they knew that today will be the day that will spark the fall of the god tribe and the hero clan. There are a few things I need to deal with. They are the 4 spirits that are known to aid the heroes, that being Byako, Seiryu, Genbu and Suzaku. Issei spoke seriously as Artemis asked. The 4 spirits. What of them? Issei spoke seriously as he responded. Once we defeat them, the strongest one will appear, that being Karyu. He may pose an additional threat after dealing with Jin Taoju. Issei spoke coldly as Malak asked. Do you want any of us to accompany you? Issei shook his head and responded. Not really, I can handle them, and if possible I can get them to my side, and you know how, right? Malak nodded in agreement as Kalani responded. Supreme Leader, please let me stay on standby above us. Issei looked at him and shrugged as he spoke. Very well, I believe the rest of you should be able to handle the gods right. Vader and the others nodded as Issei ended the meeting by saying. I believe you all should move out, we will make sure that they fall tonight. Issei spoke coldly, ready for the war. Hero Village, Hero Clan, 10 p.m. Issei and a small portion of the droid army, as one of the commanders asked Issei. Supreme Leader, what are our orders? Issei looked at the commander and spoke. We will begin our assault in 15 minutes. Issei's voice was serious, as he meant no nonsense. He scanned the surroundings. He wanted to strike when they are a little bit asleep, as he asks, where is Yusaka? Right here, she is. The commander pointed to the Yaokai leader. Her inner and outer self were nothing more than a prisoner of the Red Dragon Emperor, a slave that will follow her master's orders no matter what happens. Yusaka walked forward as Issei walked towards her. He grabbed her chin, showing sheer coldness in his eyes. Outer Yusaka wondered what were her master's commands for her, while her inner self was terrified by the sheer coldness he had for her. Yusaka, his eyes held no love or care for the Yaokai leader, she had fear written on her face. Issei did not care whether she lived or died. To him, she was nothing more of a pawn. A pawn that he won't hesitate to discard whenever he sees fit. Yusaka, let me make one thing clear, you will attack the Hero Clan in your Vulpine form. If you die, it is not my problem, cause you are no more than a pawn to me. Issei spoke coldly, venom dripping from his voice. He hated her, and that was seen in his eyes. Inner Yusaka was almost in tears hearing this. But don't you worry, your daughter will receive the news of your demise, and I can't wait to see the grief and despair on her face. Issei spoke with a sadistic grin, as Yusaka widened her eyes, as she shouted, tears falling from her eyes. Issei, no, please, don't bring Kunu into this, I beg you. Despite her shouts, nobody could hear her. Issei walked away from her, as he looked at the hero village. He then speaks to the commander. Commander, we begin our assault now. Prepare a barrier dome, no one will escape tonight. Issei spoke seriously and coldly, as the commander responded in kind. Roger, Roger. Scene change. The Hero Clan was having a peaceful night. Young aspiring heroes were ready to say their goodnights. However, that was when a massive explosion triggered. But one of the members spoke in shock. Moments later, they saw a giant vulpine fox beast that started to terrorize the entire hero village. Many were horrified by what they were seeing. Atop her, a barrier dome was formed. It was Yusaka. She unleashed storms of foxfire onto the village buildings, burning them down. The people were trying their best to flee. They were unprepared for this fight. They needed to prepare for the fight. They were not expecting a nine-tailed fox to attack them. Her strength was stated to be ultimate class. Even though there were humans were stated to barely reach the level, the children were not on that level. They had to be given the first priority. One of the heroes looked at the beast, ready with her gear. She was Yuki Nanaka. She was described to be has light blue, shoulder-length hair that has a longer portion of her hair put into a braid on the left side of her face tied into a single braid, as well as a single long strand of hair and yellow eyes. The second was a petite young girl who is surprisingly developed for her age, with blue-violet hair tied up in a ponytail most of the time, using a white scrunchie and yellow eyes. Ni-chan, what should we do? The petite girl asked her older sister, as she spoke. Aside from fighting, there is nothing we can do. We must fight the Yaokai. Kurumi, the other, spoke in a calm yet serious tone. As the one identified as Kurumi looked in worry, they wondered what chance they had against her. Another voice then came up. This time it was a male, who was described to be a blonde-haired man with dull green eyes. He was tall and has a well-built physique. We have to fight her. Yuki, Kurumi, although I have an idea on who she is. The man spoke, as Yuki asked, who exactly is she? Yuki asked in surprise, as Takashi spoke. She is supposed to be Asaka, who was stated to have been captured by the droid faction. You know what that means? Takashi's voice was grim, as Yuki responded with fear. We are under attack by them. Kurumi was not able to understand as she exclaimed. But why? We are not affiliated with the three factions or the alliance. Kurumi exclaimed in shock and surprise, as a voice spoke. I believe I can explain that. Another person came. This was revealed to be someone the three were unfamiliar with, at least on a personal level. This was Issei Haidu, as Kurumi shouted. Who are you and what are you doing here? Issei narrowed his eyes as he spoke. It is unwise to threaten me, kid. Kurumi got angry, however Yuki stopped her from doing anything reckless as she spoke. There Issei Haidu, the current Sekiruuyetei. The two looked at Issei as he spoke. You know it. The three were surprised by what he is doing here. They knew on how he was able to defeat a Furia without a problem. This made Takashi extremely angry, as he believed as a human he should help the gods. Issei glared at the man, making him shiver and lose his anger, as Yusaka was fighting against several of the heroes without a problem, incinerating anyone that got in her way. Issei turned his attention to the droid army, as they also joined in, which included B-1, B-2 super battle droids, hailfire tanks, AUTs and vulture droids. This is beautiful, don't you think? Issei's words made the three angry, as Yuki spoke with anger and sadness. Don't you see, people are dying, Issei started to chuckle as he responded coldly. Nope, I have no empathy to moronic humans that blindly follow gods, who are nothing but prideful, misogynistic and superioristic beings. Issei's words shocked the trio, as he shook his head and responded. Enough joking, I am not playing this charade anymore. Issei disappeared from the sight as he gave a punch to the stomach to Takashi's stomach. Takashi coughed up blood, the blow was strong enough to easily dismantle him. Yuki and Kurumi were shocked at first, as the two both charged at him in anger. Issei sidestepped as he used his elbow to slam Yuki to the ground, while he kicked Kurumi in the stomach, making her cough up, sending her flying to a wall. Disappointing, these are what you call heroes, Issei spoke in a bored tone, as Takashi got up and charged at Issei. You bastard, Takashi shouted as he summoned Byakko, a white tiger spirit, as they both charged at him. Byakko was strong, as he used wind blades to attack Issei, who easily dodged them in his base form, however he was nothing compared to someone that was able to take down a super devil without a problem. Issei brought out his mortis blade, as he blitzed through the ground and stabbed Takashi in the heart. No, both Kurumi and Yuki shouted in horror, as their eyes started to tear up. Takashi looked in horror as Byakko roared in fury. Issei looked at him and brought out Alpheka Tyrant. He removed a few nails and threw at Byakko, putting him unconscious. Takashi's eyes started to close as Issei removed the mortis blade. He fell on the ground and was no longer breathing. Issei hardly felt any guilt or emotion as he then brought out a box to capture Byakko. You bastard, Yuki shouted in anger and fury. She glared at Issei as she shouted again, why did you do that? Is it not obvious? The one you are looking at is the supreme leader of the droid faction. Issei spoke with a mocking smile as he bowed, shocking the two girls. You're kidding, you were once the hero, Kurumi shouted in horror as Issei responded. You are right, a hero that was always hated and desired to be used. Even now your goddess of Furia and your foolish god tribe decided to come after us. Issei spoke coldly as he continued, believe me, the god tribe was not my problem, but you chose to come after me on your own accord. If anyone is responsible for your demise, it is them. Kurumi was ready to charge, but Yuki stopped her as she spoke. Go and tell Jin-san about this, he is the only one that can stop him. Kurumi looked at her sister as she continued, I will hold him off, save yourself. But Kurumi tried to protest as Yuki shouted. She no longer spoke in a calm tone as she responded. Oh, save yourself, Kurumi, do your duty as a hero. Kurumi reluctantly left, tears falling from her eyes as Yuki glared at Issei and spoke coldly. Your fight is with me, monster. Yuki saw Issei's eyes glowing bright red in the dark as she knew that she will not survive tonight, but as long as her sister is alive, it should not be a problem. Scene change. God Tribe Headquarters, 11 p.m. The droid faction was overrunning the place, leaving no survivors of the God Tribe. All gods that were not part of the 10 gods or higher rank gods were massacred in mere moments of the attack. They were all killed by the rest of the generals, with Malak, Grievous and Vader taking most of the gods out. Even the ladies did their fair share of damage, they destroyed anyone that stood in their way, and even managed to take down 3 of the 10 gods. The ones like Artemis, Nyx and Miyuki were dealing the most of the damage. Since their strength was strong enough to take down and surpass one if not more than one of the 10 gods. The reason why the attack was so successful was because Furia managed to create an opening for them, disabling their barriers, allowing the ships like Malevolence and Leviathan to infiltrating them when they least expecting. As a result, an orbital bombardment was more than enough to wipe them out, not letting them even prepare a proper defense mechanism to protect themselves. The orbital bombardments from both the ships were able to kill many of the gods without a problem. They were unprepared for what had happened due to the bombardments catching them completely off guard. I can see why Issei hates these gods, Ingvild spoke with an angered tone. One of the gods attacked her for being a mere devil and was disgusted by their attitude. You devils have some nerve of attacking us gods, you should have been vanquished, one of the gods shouted as he charged at Ingvild, only for him to be crushed into nothingness. The attacker was revealed to be Valerie Lucifer, who was in her Imperio Juggernaut drive. She had used compression divide to wipe the god out. She also spoke coldly. Makes sense, he was right about them being prideful, superioristic and arrogant. They hate devils blindly, she was also happy to wipe them out. Valerie and Ingvild continued to fight off against the gods, they were able to take them down, due to Ingvild enhancing their abilities and their powers. Nyx watched them. She had a little respect for Ingvild due to her devotion to the droid faction, even Valerie was starting to gain some respect from the primordial goddess of darkness. She continued her assault as she killed one of the 10 gods without a problem. Meanwhile, Vader was fighting against a man wearing a helmet and having jet blue eyes, was seen as he held what seemed to be an orange blade. He wore full body blue clothing and had armor on his body. This was Idris, one of the 10 gods. You really think you can win against a god? Vader Idris spoke angrily as Vader blocked an additional strike from Idris. The god was nimble, however Vader was able to deflect most of his attacks. Using space-time magic, he immediately blended with Vader, with him noticing a green shroud surrounding him. Before he could react, Idris flung striking him on the head, scarring his face revealing his yellow eyes. His eyes brought shivers through the heart of Idris. "What are you?" Idris spoke with dread present in his voice, as Vader spoke. "Your worst nightmare." Vader spoke as he slashed Idris who was struggling to block the general's strike. Vader was enjoying the fight. He can repair his helmet later on. Scene change. Hero Village, 11:30 am. Issei was able to bring Yuki to her knees in mere moments, as he spoke with an apathetic tone. "Is that all you have got?" Issei was ready to kill her, as she looked to see Kurumi nowhere, meaning that she has not yet reached Jin, as she spoke with a smirk. "You will fall by Jin's hands, you monster." Issei chuckled as he responded. "Very well then, goodbye hero." Issei spoke stabbing her in the heart, she coughed up blood, as her vision started to get blurry, she closed her eyes breathing her last breath, as she dropped her sword, Sakuya. Yuki was no longer breathing, she was dead. Issei soon crushed the sword with his feet releasing any and all power that was present in it. He walked away leaving the dead corpse of Yuki as she lay dead on the ground. He was heading towards the vaults where the guardian beasts are kept, thanks to Furia, he has their location, all he needs to do is force them to release and use Alpheka Tyrant to control them, just like he did with Byakko. He watched as the droids and Yusaka were ravaging the hero village completely. Minutes later, he managed to get Genbu, a black spirit baton, Seiryu, a blue spirit sword, and Suzaku, a vermilion spirit sword. The reason that there were two of them was because one of each of the beasts were created by the god tribe as a copy. Issei believed this was primarily meant as a way to deal with the factions if they were to become a threat to the hero clan and the god tribe. Issei knew exactly what he needed to do. In an instant, he brought out all of the beasts and put him along with them in Dimension Lost so that no one can find him. He saw an enormous vermilion bird, a giant water dragon, and a combination of a turtle and a snake. The three beings saw Issei with a surprise, never expecting that the Red Dragon Emperor would be the one to summon them. Issei took a deep breath and brought out a rock, which was the Rock of Jerusalem. Balance breaker. Gates of Babylon. Several portals opened up revealing golden chains that bound the three beasts immediately. They used their attacks on Issei, who easily blocked it with a barrier. "It hurts to do this to a fellow dragon, but I can't let you interfere with my plans." Issei spoke sadly addressing to Seiryu, who struggled to break free. Issei then spoke. "You will soon see things my way, and you won't regret joining me." Issei spoke with a neutral look as he brought chains from Alpheka Tyrant and threw it on the beasts, as they soon stopped struggling and they lost their consciousness. Issei looked down saddened by what he did, he walked toward Seiryu as he touched the dragon, with Drake responding to help his partner. "It is not your fault, they were too loyal to their gods," Issei responded to Drake. "I know hopefully they can see reason, I am not interested in making them my sleeper agent, but if they are too blinded by loyalty, then I will do that." Issei spoke with a slight sadness as he captured the beasts into their new containers. He crushed the old containers and headed to deal with Jin Taoju, and to deal with Kaoryu, it was time to end this once and for all. Issei walked away and headed outside, where he saw many of the hero village and its residents being murdered. "Partner, I sense Jin, you are only a few steps away from him." Issei nodded in response as he headed to the location where he saw a man in his 30s, he a tall, slim man with long brown hair and glasses. He is often seen wearing a white shirt and grey pants. He sat on what seemed to be throne with a smirk as he spoke. "So you finally came." The man got up as he spoke with a glare. "Sekiruuyetei. I presume you are Jin, right?" Issei looked at him coldly as he scanned his surroundings. There was Kurumi along with her parents, Kaoru and Shuai and Anaka. "Where is Ni-chan?" "Hi-do," Kurumi shouted as Issei responded with a smirk. "Take a wild guess." Issei spoke as the three started to tear up knowing that she was dead. Before that Shuai charges at him as Issei easily blocks his strike. Before he could speak, Issei punched him pushing him behind. Anata Kaoru shouted in horror and despair as she managed to catch her husband. She started to heal her husband as Issei then spoke mockingly. "Let's make the odds in my favor." Issei brought out the 4 boxes that had the sacred beasts that he had captured. Moments later, Byakko, Seiryu, Genbu and Suzaku showed up beside Issei. All of whom were now willing to fight and die for him. "No way." Jin spoke with surprise seeing the 4 guardian beasts now affiliated with the droid faction. He gritted his teeth in horror as Issei commanded the beasts. "Byakko, Seiryu, Genbu, Suzaku, attack the 2 parents and the girl, show them no mercy." The beasts charged at the 2 heroes, while Byakko went after Kurumi. Shuai was forced to fight against Seiryu and Genbu, while Kaoru was made to fight against Suzaku. They needed to play their next move carefully. The beasts were no joke, each of them had mastery over their element. For Suzaku it was fire manipulation, for Genbu it was water manipulation, and for Seiryu it was wood manipulation, and for Byakko it was metal manipulation. The heroes were struggling to face off against the beasts that once had protected them, especially Kurumi who was barely holding off against the beast who could control metal itself. While Shuai and Kaoru were having better chances against the beasts they had to protect their only child, since Yuki was dead by now. Meanwhile, Issei and Jin stared at each other, waiting for the one who will make the first move. The two knew that one of them will come out alive, however Issei knew Jin's skills relatively well, especially his banishing shift. He saw Jin's body glow with a green aura, which Issei sensed to be having traces of draconic energy. He knew this to be banishing shift. He saw him holding a sword in his hands. "Let's take this rough, Sekiruuyetei." Jin spoke coldly as he dashed towards Issei. He disappeared in a blink as Issei blocked his strike with a mortis blade. Issei knew that this man is the strongest hero. He also knew that this man surpassed one of the 10 gods of the god tribe. He knew that his strength surpassed a Furia by a long mile. He wondered whether he would be needing Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker or not. Issei responded by pushing him behind and firing a dragon shot at him. But Jin let it come. He did not dodge. Instead, the attack dissipated into nothingness, which surprised Issei. The dragon shot was strong enough to injure a Satan-class being. "So that is your banishing shift, I presume," Issei spoke as he continued, "a powerful ability gained by drinking the blood of an evil dragon that can send attacks into the zero dimension, basically into nothingness. So you have decided to use that, huh?" Jin responded to Issei's words coldly. He was surprised by the amount of insight and information he had into dealing with his enemies. "You are gonna wish I hadn't, boy," Issei chuckled as he responded. "Come on Jin, I have faced worse attacks than that before." Issei then continued as he spoke, "I see this as a different variant of the power of destruction used by the Bale clan. The only difference between the two, from what I could analyze, is that the pod destroys targets on a subatomic level, which can completely annihilate things when used. This sends it to a different plane of existence." Jin was silent. The analysis of Issei surprised him to no bounds. He looked at Issei, who twirled the mortis blade. "Aside from that, I really don't understand why someone like you fights for people like them." Issei spoke as he shook his head. He then continued. "In my eyes, I see the god tribe as nothing but arrogant and misogynistic beings. I really don't understand why you support them." Jin sighed as he responded. "They are the reason why we have even reached to this level, Sekiruuyetei. Many of us aren't born with what you call a sacred gear, and we owe them with our lives." Jin explained to Issei as he responded, "Someone that doesn't value family or relationships like you would never understand what it feels like." Issei started chuckling. Jin narrowed his eyes as Issei responded to Jin. "I do understand what loyalty is, Jin. But what I frown on is blind loyalty, loyalty that is formed by idiots who fail to understand what is wrong and what is right. That is what I detest, since it reminded of who I once was, blindly loyal to those that hated, used and discriminated against me, and you Jin, I see you no different to how I once was, you are blindly loyal to the gods. Gods who I stated before are arrogant and misogynistic beings, gods who hate devils just because they assume that all of them are evil, hence they refuse the concept of peace. Gods who believe that humanity is nothing more than a tool for their own pleasures and own desires. That is the difference between you and me Jin. I am a dragon, and dragons don't bow to anyone, especially to beings that think that they are superior to them, like your god tribe." Jin was seething when he heard this, however he calmed down. Issei's assessment was the result of his experiences. Jin was ready to take him down, however a scream had garnered the attention of both Issei and Jin, along with the others. It was Kurumi's, as she had a part of her body crushed, a part that was near her heart. She had a look of horror as she dropped dead after coughing up blood. The attacker was Byako, as Jin was horrified by what he saw. Kurumi, Kaoru and Shuaya screamed in despair, as however in their despair, they failed to notice the other 3 beasts ready to kill them using their attacks, as Seiryu used wood to slam the couple at a distance. Their bodies tumbled at distance for a while, where Genbu used water to slice their limbs using high-pressure water, and finally Suzaku burned them alive as their bodies were completely singed. They screamed in pain during this process, as only their corpses were left behind. Jin was silent. He glared at Issei, who only shook his head at this. He did not know any empathy or any other emotion for people he did not know or hated. He lost it a long time ago. "You bastard," Jin growled. His blade was shaking due to the anger he was feeling, which was a longsword. He did not have Balming as Raphaeline had asked him to return it due to his disobedience against her and desiring to join the alliance. The Balming was a replica that the gods created, just like the beasts that they cloned that belonged to the 5 principal clans. However, the blade was not in his possession, and he was not happy with Raphaeline taking it away from him. Jin dashed as he was now wanting to kill Issei. He was striking with all his strength, which caused Issei to struggle a bit. He was blocking every strike with a little bit of difficulty. "Oh my, this is getting good, now I am seeing the strength of the hero," Issei exclaimed with a grin. He was excited for the challenge Jin was posing. He could end with balance breaker, but this is getting more interesting. Perhaps this night will be good. "I will make you regret everything you have done," Issei grinned seeing Jin shout. He was using banishing shift to counter any attack that did manage to hit Issei. He tried to use it on Issei, but he did not let that happen. The 4 beasts were ready to attack, but Issei stopped them from doing so. This was his fight and there will be no interruptions. Issei easily backflipped and fired a bolt of lightning magic at Jin, who used banishing shift to nullify it. However, Issei smirked. The boosted gear then sounded. Penetrate. The attack bypassed banishing shift and shocked Jin, as he shouted in pain. Jin wondered how did Issei gain access to penetrate of all things, as he knew this ability belonged to Drake. Issei did not give any chance and dashed, closing the distance. He slammed the hero to the ground, making him cough up. He still needed to recover from the magic attack Issei gave him. Issei summoned divine dividing as the gear started to chant. Divide, 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 divide. Jin's power was starting to go away, as he knew that Issei was trying to take away his ability to use banishing shift. Jin gritted his teeth in pain when he saw a dragon shot heading his way. He tried to dodge it, but it was too late, as he watched in horror getting hit by the dragon shot as Issei spoke. You fought well, Jin Taoju. It is time to rest. However, unbeknownst to Issei, someone else also joined the fight. Jin watched up to see a Chinese yellow dragon, whom he recognized to be Karyu. Karyu restored Jin's strength as he stood up. Issei sensed a presence, which he recognized to be the leader of the 4 dragons. He smirked as he spoke. So you finally decided to show up. Issei spoke with a grin. Karyu. The dust settled, revealing Jin standing tall beside the yellow dragon, who roared in fury as the 4 beasts beside Issei were intimidated by Karyu's presence. However, Issei knew exactly how to deal with the yellow dragon as well. Issei's eyes changed color. Instead of being his light brown eyes changed purple as he started to sing. Karyu fell on the ground, trying to resist the charms of the song, but was unable to. Jin tried to stop Issei, but was stopped by the 4 beasts as Issei commanded them while singing. Distract him. Jin gritted his teeth in fury as he now had to deal with all 4 beasts at once. Karyu tried to strike at Issei, but was soon falling into his control. This was due to Issei using Narid Kiri, Engvald sacred gear. The 4 divine beasts were strong enough to keep Jin at bay. As a result, he couldn't save Karyu as he watched Issei approach him. He kept singing as he brought out Alpheka Tyrant and threw 10 nails on Koryu, 2 of each aimed at his limbs and head, causing him to fall unconscious. The beasts managed to keep Jin distracted as Issei captured Karyu in the box. The king of the 4 beasts now is in Issei's control. No, Jin shouted in horror and fear as Issei then spoke. It is time to end this. Balance break. The boosted gear announced in response. Welsh Dragon Balance Breaker. Issei entered into his balance breaker, which radiated power even more. As he dashed to Jin, he spoke to the beasts. I will take care of him. The beasts obeyed Issei's commands as he slammed Jin to the ground. Jin was unable to use Shimetsukensen due to Issei preventing him from doing so. Issei unleashed a series of slashes using Mortis Blade, which caused him to shout in pain. Issei compounded with firing with dragon shot before he could react, causing massive explosions, but he did not stop there. He went into the smoke and grabbed Jin by the throat. He easily ragdolled him to the ground as he was trying his best to use his sword and use banishing shift on Issei's arm, as in response to wings belonging to the divine dividing showed up. Divide, 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 divide. Jin had once again lost his strength to perform banishing shift. He was then flung at a distance. As he was slammed to the wall, Issei had electricity in his hands as he used penetrate to make sure Jin does not use banishing shift. He electrocuted Jin, causing him to scream in pain. He had blisters on his body due to the electrical attacks, and his clothes were torn. He was bleeding on several parts of his body and was barely alive. He could no longer fight. He was knocked unconscious, unable to move. You did well, but it is now time to end this. Issei brought out his communication circle as he spoke. Kalani, prepare an orbital bombardment in T-90 seconds. Yusaka, prepare a Fox Flame Bomb. At the same time, Kalani prepares for an orbital bombardment. Both Yusaka and Kalani responded, as you wish, Lord Issei. Issei puts a communication circle as he communicates. Did you get the elders? The commando droids on the other side responded. Indeed we did, they were barely a challenge. Issei responded. Good. Issei looked at the beasts and put them back in their containers as he teleported back to the base with the droid army. As he watched Jin's final moments, he was unconscious, unable to move, and even if he did, there was no way he could escape the barrier dome, especially not in this condition. Issei and the droid army reached the Soulless One, which was completely cloaked. Kalani spoke. So you came, Supreme Leader, how did it go? Issei spoke with a smile. I managed to get all 5 of the sacred beasts. Once we are done, I want you to study them. Kalani nodded as he responded. As you wish. Kalani prepared the orbital bombardment at the main building as Issei instructed Yusaka as he saw her prepare the Fox Flame Bomb. It was almost done as Kalani spoke. We are in position, should we fire now? Issei gives a nod as he speaks to Yusaka. Destroy the village, make sure there is nothing left. Yusaka gave a confirmation as they both attacked at the same time. The orbital bombardment, combined with a foxfire bomb, completely destroyed the hero village, leaving no trace of it. Yusaka was immediately teleported back to the Soulless One in her human form. She had a look that lacked emotion as she watched the mission go well. Anyone that was alive in the hero village was long dead, even Jin did not survive the attacks. The hero village that was once a prosperous village was nothing but a crater at this point. It was truly the darkest night for the hero village, a night that will never see the light of day. Chapter 30. Divine Destruction. 2 hours earlier, Leviathan, God Tribe, 10:30 p.m. Malak was standing in the Leviathan, watching the God Tribe in a normal time, resigning for the day as they head back to their homes. Behind him were all the remaining generals and sleeper agents, all of whom had one action: the complete annihilation of the God Tribe. In a few minutes we will begin the assault, everyone prepare yourselves, and make sure no one survives. Malak spoke coldly, as there seems to be no doubt in the plan. The Furia, once we attack, activate the barrier. This would make you seem that you are on their side, however in reality it would prevent them from escaping. Malak spoke seriously in his communicator, to which a Furia. As you wish, Lord Malak. A Furia spoke coldly, as Malak looked at Lafolia, his apprentice, and spoke. Your job will be to disrupt any communications. You will stay in the ship for the time being. Once this is done, you will join under Nyx and Artemis. Malak spoke seriously as Lafolia nods and asks. But why do we need to disrupt their communications? Malak looked at her and responds. It is simple. Issei was able to see a situation where one of the gods of the God Tribe, that being Raphaeline, was able to contact Michael and tell him about us, and even let him know about Issei. This caused Issei a lot of issues. Sure, we were able to wipe out the factions, but it was not as smooth as it should have been. Malak answers seriously, to which Lafolia nods in agreement. I see. Lafolia nods, as Malak continues. Grievous, Vader, Nyx, Artemis, Miyuki and Gondal, your job will be to take down the 10 gods, the higher ranking ones. Is there any issues? Malak asked, to which none of the girls seemed to object. Quinella, Charlotte, Ingvold, Valerie, Marana and Elizabeth, along with the rest of you all will provide support to the ones that will be handling the 10 gods whenever they need it. Any objections? Malak asked to the others, as there was no issues. I will be handling Adagio myself. You sure about this? Nyx asked with concern, to which Malak responded. I will be fine. If there is anyone that is stronger than me, it is Issei, Great Red in office, so you needn't worry about me. Nyx nodded, satisfied by the answer, as Malak looks at the console. He commanded his droid to prepare the orbital bombardment and a barrier field on the main city. God Tribe, 10:45 p.m. The God Tribe were preparing to sign off for the day, however no sooner than that, an orbital bombardment was unleashed onto the God Tribe. Screams and cries was heard across the people. Adagio and some of the gods were shocked by this, however Adagio needed to act quickly. The droid faction has already attacked them, they were deemed as a threat, and now their elimination was decided by the faction's hands. We must prepare to defend ourselves. I want Malak's head on a plate. He will not hurt my people. Adagio spoke coldly and angrily, as the other gods nodded. Using his 2 wings, he took a running start outside as he flew towards the Leviathan, which had now revealed himself. Meanwhile, Malak had deployed everyone onto the field. As they began their attack, several of the civilians who were vulnerable to the attacks were running in horror, in fear of what Malak and the droid faction was capable of. The god civilians were also no joke. They were using all manner of magic to destroy and defeat the battle droids, even managing to defeat several of them, but the numbers were too many. The Dradikas joined in to protect their battalions, generating deflector shields to deflect any magic that came their way. The B-2 rocket troopers were easily bombarding the place with rockets enchanted by the ability Penetrate, allowing them to pierce the barriers, killing many of the gods. They were joined by Dradikas unleashing their destructive armaments on any gods, killing them with a barrage of bullets. Soon later, some gods joined in. These were mid-level gods of the God Tribe, accompanied by a commander who was female. She had blonde hair as they all were tied in a bun. She was one of the 10 gods. Commence, assault. The gods charged their magical attacks and started to fight back, destroying some of the droids, as Artemis decided to join the fight. Using a barrage of arrows which she casted on her bow, she fired them onto several of the gods. She was joined by Nyx, who muttered, "Shadow expanse." Beneath Nyx, a shadow grew as she surrounded the god battalion with the shadow as they started to sink in. What is this magic? Help me help, Lady Ross. Please save me. Stop this, spare me please. Those were some of the voices. Coupled with the arrow barrage, they were completely defenseless. The shadow was pulling them in, like a quicksand. This was the result of Nyx's training. The god soldiers completely sank into her shadows, while Ross watched helplessly. Shadow expanse was a manifestation of Nyx's darkness, which is an expansion of her own consciousness. This was due to her reasoning of not being held back. Her desire to stand beside Issei and not lose herself to anyone that would hurt her, she remembers on how Issei defied everyone just to make sure that she was safe. He became strong for her sake, to make sure she was safe. She also knew that she must repay him, she must become strong, so that she does not hold him back. She knew that soon, he will become a terrorist, thus putting him in a risk of fighting against someone like Shiva or the Trimurti, someone whom she knew that may kill Issei, potentially. Despite knowing Issei could kill Shiva, she did not want to risk his life by doing something reckless. She feared for him, he had his weaknesses, and that was his loved ones. The factions could use them against him, causing him to falter. She refused to let that happen, she did not want to lose him or her new family. She never had a family, and now that she has it, she refuses to lose it. Nyx smirked seeing these gods suffered. Roz glared at Nyx as she radiated her power and shouted. Nyx got ready, as she was going to fight, she smirked knowing that she was going to fight. She flew in the air as she told Artemis. I will take care of her, find the other 10 gods and eliminate them. Artemis nodded, she took some of her allies, and they all headed to the other locations where the 10 gods were. Nyx saw her opponent, she was Roz, one of the 10 gods, she had blonde hair and green eyes, her hair was in a short braid, with her wearing traditional medieval armor. Darkness emitted from her hands as she unleashed a blast of magic towards the goddess. Roz blocked her attack with ease, she summoned 2 circles of magic, that being fire and wind. This caused a fire whirl as she motioned it towards Nyx. The tornado was sucking the houses and burning them to the ground, it was almost as tall as the Empire State Building, and it was as wide as half a football field, or at least the top part. Nyx understood this, using her primordial darkness, she covered the tornado in her everlasting darkness, culling it without a problem. Using her mastery over darkness magic, she encases the entire god tribe territory in her blanket of darkness. Roz was shocked by the sheer darkness she possessed, she knew that her opponent was strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the Red Dragon Emperor, or that was what her intel stated. She prepared an attack on Nyx, who only stood there, being unaffected. Roz smirked believing that today she will be killing the primordial goddess of darkness. Her light magic was extremely strong, as she was overconfident in her killing Nyx. Several magic circles came beside her all having light magic as he fired onto them. Nyx stood there expecting an attack. However, she knew that she can take an attack like this without a problem. Take this, Roz shouted in fury ready to kill Nyx as Quinella and Charlotte seemed worried as they both readied their barrier to protect Nyx, however Nyx gave the 2 a smile, assuring that everything will be fine. Nyx looked coldly at Roz, she smirked as she used her ultimate move, she muttered. Shadow Void. All the shadow surrounding the world was sucked into her hand, which she had put forward, it was encompassed into a black sun-like ball. She flung the ball onto the field, which started to suck out all the light magic onto it. The attack was similar to Rhea's extinguished star, but with several differences, one of them being the darkness, would neutralize any light attack that would come near it and is the most effective against that type of magic. The attack also had a major downside, and that was only if Nyx used her darkness in a field full of darkness, which she needs to generate beforehand. This attack could also be used against magic attacks and not physical attacks. Nyx was working on an alternative so that she does not have to generate a field, as well as she can counter physical attacks. But for now, this would do. Roz was horrified, her strongest attack was dissolved into nothingness, Nyx then explained. You did not realize, did you? You are in my domain, as long as there is darkness, I can recreate attacks without a problem, even if my mana runs out. Roz was angry, she was like most of the gods in the god tribe, arrogant and misogynistic. They also had a sheer hatred to those that they believed were compassed of darkness, primarily devils, and other beings who were tempted to fall into darkness. Additionally, they also hated those that could use demonic or darkness magic, and this extended to gods and goddesses like Nyx and Erebus as well. It is time to end this. Nyx unleashed the darkness surrounding her to unleash several bullets of darkness onto the goddess, who had a hard time dodging them. Quinella and Charlotte looked at Nyx as they killed another god that was getting in their way. Mind if we join? Quinella spoke while generating ice magic, as Nyx spoke with a smile. The more, the merrier. Charlotte nodded with a smile as she generated her King of Flies ability as the 2 bombarded their attacks onto Roz. Roz was unable to see this as she got struck by their attacks, she glared at her 2 new attackers, failing to notice the darkness bullets has not reduced. She shouted in pain. Roz fell to her knees as Nyx spoke. It is time to end this. Nyx started to absorb all of the darkness into a huge ball as she shouted moments later when the attack was ready. The sky was returning to its original color. Dark annihilation. Nyx flung the ball at Roz, completely consuming her into darkness. She tried to use one final light attack as Nyx easily dodged it, she watched in horror as she was going to die tonight. Nyx fell to her knees due to exhaustion as Quinella and Charlotte rushed to her as Nyx spoke. I am fine. Nyx spoke with a forced smile as she sat down for a while, Quinella then responded. Leave the rest to us, rest for a while. Nyx managed to get up, but she couldn't as Charlotte spoke. Take it easy Nyx, you should let us do the work. Nyx looked at her and spoke. Fine, but I will join soon. The girls nodded as she watched for a while as they slaughtered any and all gods and goddess that were part of the god tribe. Scene change. God tribe, 11:20 p.m. Artemis was engaging with a god who was described to be a man in his 30s, having a shoulder-length hair which was described to be blood red. He also had an armor in his medieval era. This was Regenleaf. She was joined by Elizabeth, who was primarily supporting her. Despite being a high-level god that was capable of keeping up with a Satan-class being, Artemis surpassed him by a long shot. He was struggling to even do any damage. The girls were overpowering him without a problem. You traitors, Regenleaf growled in anger before receiving a punch to the face from the goddess of hunting. She used several arrows enhanced by the moon's power. She fired them onto Regenleaf, who blocked them with their best. Elizabeth decided to support them by using light magic, enhanced by her dark light. Her magic was as strong as a Satan-class being, which made Regenleaf struggle. He was forced to dodge the attacks. Sorry, we can't let you live. Artemis put her bow down, having a smirk on her face. Their superior complex and attitude annoyed her to no bounds. It reminded of how she once was, and she hated her past self at this point, seeing that these gods were a direct parallel to how she once was. She worked on herself. The trauma she experienced was not easy to forget, and she may never forget. She never accepted it, and as a result several suffered because of her anger and hatred towards men. She regretted it a lot when she knew what Issei had experienced was worse than what she had to live through, as she believed she would have been a whole lot worse had she experienced what Issei did. Issei was the reason she became a better person, and she had a lot to work on if she had to live by Issei's side as one of his own. Eventually, as time passed and seeing Issei for what he really is, she fell for him, but due to her past trauma and fear which was still lingering, she eventually got over herself and fatefully confessed to him. She became a much better person when she saw how Issei refused to take advantage of her even when he could have, and at this point, she did not mind. He comforted her and was there for her when she needed him the most. She knew he was someone she could trust and even love. She would even give her life for Issei, one of the few that she truly cared and loved. Regenleaf unleashed several fireball spells at the two as Artemis fired a barrage of arrows that easily blocked the spells. She dashed extremely quickly and gave a punch to Regenleaf's stomach. Regenleaf coughed up as he angrily glared at Artemis. However, before he could react, Elizabeth unleashed a light energy blast at Regenleaf. As Artemis flew up dodging the attack, she flew towards Elizabeth standing beside her. You could have given me a heads up, Liz. Artemis spoke with a tone hinting of slight annoyance. Sorry Artie, but couldn't let him know about it. Elizabeth responded, causing Artemis to sigh, as she should have realized this. Regenleaf recovered, unleashing a torrent of lava at the two girls. This was a combination of fire and rock magic. As they both dodged the attack, Artemis and Elizabeth were forced to block whatever that came after they had dodged the attack. Using his speed, he teleported right in front of Artemis, and before she could react, as he socked her in the face, causing her to momentarily stagger. Seeing an opportunity to deal with the goddess of hunting, he kept socking her in the face over and over again. He continued this for a while as his barrier started to deteriorate. Since Artemis was losing her concentration, she was able to notice the lava coming near her, and Regenleaf was not stopping his onslaught. She would have dealt with him, but she was too focused on maintaining the barrier, and she was also aware that Regenleaf had some immunity to lava, preventing him from being injured. She had to take a risk. Deciding to do so, she kicked Regenleaf in the groin, causing him to screech in pain. She had no choice, with her hands used to protect herself. She also had to deal with Regenleaf, who was ready to attack her once again. Even after getting hit at his vulnerable spot, he was still durable enough to continue as he recovered moments later. She used one hand to maintain the barrier and fired a blast of Greek magic at him as he struggled to block it at a close range, causing an explosion. Artemis teleported out of there and went with Elizabeth, who managed to block the lava enough for her to recover. She saw her breathing more than usual as she asked, "You okay?" Artemis nods as she saw the lava settle down, revealing Regenleaf, who was breathing heavily unlike Artemis. "Let's end this and help the others." Elizabeth spoke coldly as Artemis nods in response as she charged her arrow at him. It was enchanted with Greek magic, with Elizabeth surrounding the field with light particles. Spirited Shackle. Artemis unleashed the arrow as Elizabeth put her hands down, commanding the light particles to close in and using the light particles to trigger a massive explosion. They exploded, and before Regenleaf could react, he was engulfed by the attacks as it resulted in a massive explosion of light energy. When the explosion died down, Regenleaf was nowhere to be found. He was dead. Artemis and Elizabeth sat down for a while as Artemis spoke. "You okay?" Elizabeth responded. "Just a little exhausted." "That attack, how strong was it?" Artemis responded to Elizabeth, who was her harem sister. Strong enough to completely destroy a Satan-class being and even damage a high god-class being, but for certain Satan-class beings, it will deal significant damage instead of destroying it. Artemis spoke with a smile, causing Elizabeth to gulp. But don't worry Liz, you, Issei and Issei's true friends and family are like my very own, I can't even think of hurting any of you. Artemis spoke with a reassuring tone, causing the Dark Angel to breathe a sigh of relief. Well, let's wait and join Nyx and the others after a while. Elizabeth spoke, earning a nod from the goddess. Scene change. Odd Tribe, 11:45 p.m. Vader was fighting off against Idris, who was quick enough to dodge his strikes. His shimmer strike had no effect on Vader, as only a part of his helmet was gone. Angered, Vader used telekinesis to send the god flying. As he held his ground, he threw his chakram in response, which was easily deflected by his dark blade, as he was joined by Asia and Gasper, the first using fire magic onto Idris, who used his spear to deflect the flames, only for him to be bound by Gasper's darkness, which he easily broke using his strength. Vader joined the fight by slamming his blade onto the ground, creating a tremor, which Idris dodged with a blitz. Vader kept attacking with his blade, and with Asia and Gasper supporting him, was making them difficult. Understanding this, Idris dashed as he sent Asia flying with one strike. As he focused on Gasper, he used Shimmer Strike, making him intangible. He struck hard on Gasper, sending him flying, not knowing that he had to deal with Vader. I have you know Vader struck Idris with force enough to damage his helmet, gritting his teeth in pain. Idris used his chakram, however Vader was not going to let that happen. Using his telekinesis he sent Idris flying, and with pressure he managed to pin all of his limbs to the wall. He was unable to move, as Vader threw his blade onto Idris, striking his hands off. Idris screamed in pain, as Vader used one hand to maintain the pressure, while he received his blade which had rebounded back to him. This was a technique called culling blade. Vader kept slashing onto the defenseless Idris, as he gritted his teeth in pain, he then slammed his blade into Idris's head, killing him. Too easy. Vader walked away. These gods were not like the other pantheons, they are weak in his eyes. He turned his attention to Gasper and Asia, who had woken up, as he spoke coldly. This is your first and last warning, it would be wise for the two of you to catch up, otherwise you will be left behind to die. Vader looked at the two who were shivering as he asked coldly, do I make myself clear? Why yes, Lord Vader. Vader walked ahead, trying to deal with any of the gods that stood in his way. It was all too easy for him. Scene change. Odd Tribe, 12 a.m. Gondal and Miyuki were facing off against Ornis, who was described to be a man having a pair of glowing blue eyes. He was wearing his god armor as he faced the two girls, who were accompanied by Penemu and Akeno. Ornis was struggling against their combined assault of the four of them. He gritted his teeth in fury as he was bombarded by magical attacks from all four of them. Damn you all, Ornis shouted in anger, as Gondal responded coldly. What's the matter? Can't keep up with non-gods. Ornis gritted his teeth, he responded with a magical blast, as Miyuki unleashed a freezing magic at Ornis. This disintegrated the attack into nothingness. Ornis used magic to try and attack Miyuki, but was able to sense it and block it with ease. Gondal sensed this and used gravity magic, disrupting his movement speed by a lot. She made sure to aim at the limbs, cutting the speed by a lot. Penemu and Akeno used their light magic, or in Akeno's case holy lightning, to damage Ornis, who tried his best to block the attack. Miyuki, seeing this, ambushed him from behind and attacked him with high-speed water bullets, causing him to lower his guard, allowing the holy light attacks to hit him. He screamed in pain. Gondal saw this as an opportunity to unleash several elemental magic spells comprising of fire, lightning, ice, water, electric, light and dark. Despite her advanced age, she was quite young, as she has lived for hundreds of years. She was considered an arch-Valkyrie and a demigod of Odin, inheriting a lot from him. Using that knowledge, her base reserves were Satan class. In addition to that, she also had several other skills as well, some of which were precognition and anger manipulation. She also remembered why she was unable to know of Issei's attacks using her precognition ability. Issei responded that it was because of a telekinetic spell known as disruption, which prevented any supernatural or human from sensing his true intentions or finding out the future. Scene change. Flashback starts. Lord Issei, may I ask you a question? Gondal asked with a smile. Issei was working on the final touches of Narite Kiri. Go ahead, is something wrong, Gondal? Gondal looked at him and responded, how were you able to bypass my ability of precognition? And find a way to counter my anger manipulation? Gondal asked as she remembered her fight against him months ago. It is actually simple, I created a specially designed to deal with beings that could read my mind or have foresight. Issei spoke with a neutral tone as he continued, it is a spell called Disruption, a telekinetic spell that is known to disrupt and distort visions that would be received by the targets that are known to use precognition or have visions. Furthermore, it can also cause severe headaches to those that might try to read my intentions or use an ability to do the same. If I did not create this, I would have been exposed a long time ago, since beings like the Tremurtier Gabriel would have seen my reality a long time ago, and hence I would have been exposed. Issei spoke with a sigh. But I don't understand one thing, why do you hate gods like Shiva and the Hindu faction? Issei responded to Gondal's question. Shiva also tried to believe that I was nothing but a liar, he blindly realized that I was the hero. And while he did not look down or hate me, he certainly was not a fan of me, and that was something that I could see in his eyes. Issei spoke with sadness as he continued, he is supposed to be someone who could see someone's character in an instant, yet he failed to do so, believing Azazel's words so shamelessly. Issei spoke coldly as Gondal watches him. However, despite what they did to me, they still believed that I was their naive hero that would save them unconditionally, regardless of what they would do to me, and that is their biggest mistake. Issei spoke coldly as he continued, I am not, and I know for a fact that they will not hesitate to discard me as a tool when they see fit, they only desire to save their skin, nothing more, nothing less. Gondal nods, remembering how Odin did not think twice before discarding her, he hated him more than anything else, and if Issei is right, Shiva and the Hindu faction might also be the same, but then again, Shiva and the Hindu faction may not be as bad as say the Norse faction. She then says. I see, thank you for your time, Lord Issei. Gondal leaves the room, leaving her in her thoughts. She knew what Issei experienced was far worse than what she did and perhaps ever will. Flashback ends. Scene change. Gondal looked at Ornis, who was breathing heavily, the combined assault had left him barely alive, as he spoke weakly. Why you are really think you see can win? Gondal smirked, seeing his condition as he spoke. We just did. Miyuki looked at Gondal and asked, may I end this? Gondal gave a nod, using heavy water pressure. Miyuki generated a blade that had high pressure water that could destroy a building with relative ease, and she cut Ornis before he could react. Ornis felt a deep cut near his heart as he saw his body being sliced into two. As his upper torso started to slide down his lower torso, Ornis realized what had happened but was too late to even react as his body fell to the ground lifeless. Soon after, Ornis's upper body as well fell down on the ground, with his lower body falling soon after. He was no longer able to move due to his heart being heavily wounded. Miyuki ended the fight by cutting his upper torso in half from the top, killing him. No, that's done, I believe we should clear the rest of these gods. Gondal spoke coldly as Miyuki nods in response. Miyuki then turned her attention to Akeno and Penemu. The two of you, make sure no survivors remain. Miyuki spoke coldly, earning the nods from the two sleeper agents as they continued destroying everything. Scene change. God Tribe, 12 AM. Grievous was fighting off against Raphaeline with several of the B1, B2 super battle droids and Drodikas who were all attacking her at once. She struggled to keep up with all of them. Her magic was easily evaded by the droid general, who was mocking her at every step. What's the matter, Goddess-sama? Can't keep up. Grievous was constantly attacking her with his light blades as she used her own blades to block it. It would have been convenient for her to dodge and attack at the same time, but with the droids joining the fight, she found it hard to do that. Since the droids refused to back away from the attacks. Not to mention, Grievous was using the whole field to his advantage. He kept using the buildings as his platform. If there was anything Grievous could do, it was to use his terrain to his advantage, his suction pads and gravity changer in his limbs, allowing him to move even in the walls and ceilings in the building. You really think you can stop me, Grievous? A Furia is coming with a light weapon to kill you. Grievous pretended to be angry, as he knew that a Furia was never on her side to begin with. Bring her here, show me what she has got. Grievous spoke with a neutral tone as he continued swinging his blade, causing some injuries to the goddess, who gritted her teeth. Raphaeline used elemental and angelic magic to fight against the metalloid monstrosity. Grievous kept skittering around, dodging every attack. He was fast enough to even dodge area spells, ambushing Raphaeline at every step as he was whittling her strength slowly and steadily. Raphaeline was wondering where her cousin was. She was expecting her to show up sooner than later. As she waited, taking damage from Grievous's strikes, she was trying her best to defend herself. After a while, a Furia showed up with a weapon, however her intentions were not to help her cousin. Raphaeline saw this and responded. Do it, a Furia, kill him, Raphaeline commanded as a Furia glared at Grievous, only for her to change into an evil smirk moments later as she shot Raphaeline in the heart. Raphaeline was shocked and horrified by this betrayal. The Furia, why? Raphaeline fell to the ground limp, her outer self was smirking, while her inner self shouted. Nuo, Furia shouted as she killed her only family in cold blood. This was something her outer self would have wanted, but her inner self was devastated. She glared at her outer self for doing this to her. A part of her regretted forcing Issei to help, otherwise none of this would have happened. They wouldn't have been on the droid faction's radar. She hated herself for being prideful and arrogant, and this costed her only family. Raphaeline was clutching her wound as she looked at a Furia, tears falling down from her eyes as she spoke weakly. Why did you do it? Grievous approached her and spoke. Allow me to explain, when they attacked the Red Dragon Emperor to force him to join, that is when we decided to turn her into one of our own, right now she is completely under our control. The reason it was so easy was because after her fight, she was so weakened that she couldn't resist our mind control. Raphaeline looked in horror. This meant the cousin that had came back after the fight was not her at all, it was someone else entirely. She gritted her teeth in fury of Malak's actions, she hated him even more now. But she was not going to live for much long, since the wound was too severe. Why you bastard, Raphaeline growled in fury, as Grievous responded. Oh, don't be like that, you gods are no good guys. Ironically, you are as bad as us. Using humanity for your own selfish desires, you toyed and made people like Jin, like the hero clan, just like you guys. If anyone is responsible for this, blame Adagio for believing that humanity is nothing but a bunch of pawns for your motives. Grievous spoke coldly, as Raphaeline looked away, losing some of her anger. She did have the same thoughts as Adagio did. To her, they made the mistake of revealing themselves to the droid faction, causing them and the hero tribe to be their targets. Her vision was starting to get blurry, as Grievous stabbed her in the head, ending her suffering. She closed her eyes as she died that day. Inner Furia was crying relentlessly, while her outer self was not affected at all seeing her cousin die, as Grievous spoke. I guess that is done, well let's end this fight already. Grievous spoke to his allies, whom all nodded as they continued ravaging the god tribe. Scene change. God tribe, 12:30 am. Adagio was attacking Malak with 2 light spears, with Lafolia intercepting with her own blows towards the leader of the god tribe. He was already on his last breath due to fighting Malak for almost 2 hours straight. Adagio gritted his teeth in exhaustion, as Lafolia unleashed a bolt of electricity which he had deflected with his spears, as they fell to the other side. The leader charged at Lafolia with killer intent, ready to kill her, but her defenses have improved significantly, thanks to her stern training at the hands of Malak. Malak used telekinesis to pull Adagio as he slammed him to the ground. Adagio coughed up as Malak unleashed lightning attack on Adagio, causing him to shout in pain. Adagio shouted in pain, as Lafolia used her telekinesis to bind him in a place. It's over. Lafolia spoke coldly, as Adagio asked. I thought that the RageRevan family was allies with the biblical faction, so why are you working with them? Lafolia shakes her head and responds. Is it not obvious? You all see us humans for your own self-satisfaction, make us fight your wars and even use us for your own purposes. You look down upon us and let us die to satisfy your goals. Lafolia spoke coldly, as Adagio gritted his teeth in anger. In his last-ditch effort, he started to channel whatever magic he had. Seraphic flare, a magic circle came underneath as Malak understood what he needed to do. If the power activates, it could kill Lafolia. He crushed Adagio and created a barrier full of telekinesis as he shouted towards Lafolia. Lafolia, get back, it is going to explode. Lafolia nods as she steps behind. Malak turns his attention to Adagio and crushes the area using a telekinetic barrier. Once the flare was done, it triggered a massive explosion. However, Malak was able to reduce the area of effect of the barrier with his own telekinesis. The barrier exploded, revealing a heavily breathing Adagio as Malak came out, with only his clothes being dirty and him being unharmed. Adagio was horrified, as Lafolia soon came in as Malak spoke. It's over, you have no strength left, and soon the very god tribe that you led will be nothing but rubble. Adagio wanted to retort, however Malak drove his blade into his heart as he fell. He soon started to drain his life force, completely leaving him nothing but a husk of his former self. He looked into Malak's eyes, his yellow and cold look drove fear into his heart as he soon took his last breath. The leader of the god tribe was no longer there as Malak looked at Lafolia and asked, "You okay?" Lafolia gave a nod as she asked, "Is it over?" Malak gave a nod as he spoke. "I believe all we need is a complete orbital bombardment. I will let everyone know that Adagio is dead, so we can begin the complete annihilation of the god tribe." Lafolia gave a nod as everyone was teleported back to the Leviathan. Malak soon gave the command, and an orbital bombardment was unleashed any survivors of the god tribe, destroying the place completely, leaving behind only rubble and dead bodies in its wake. Scene change. Invisible Hand, 1:30 am. Supreme Leader, we have gotten a confirmation that the god tribe has fallen. One of the droid commanders had spoken, as Issei spoke with a smirk. But Issei then told Malak, let's head back, we can have a good night's sleep, since the god tribe will no longer bother us. I agree, we are all coming back. I wonder how the factions will react to this. Malak responded with a smirk as Issei agreed. They all headed back knowing that the factions will be even more in despair. This included those factions that have hidden themselves for a very long time. Chapter 31. Fortuitous Endeavors. A few weeks have passed after the droid faction wiped out the god tribe and hero clan. The extermination of the god tribe and the hero clan released turmoils across all factions. Although humanity was kept in the dark due to their extermination, the fact that so many government officials were assassinated in one night caused panic to arise. Thankfully, the supernatural were forced to erase all memories of the officials, leaving no trace of them left. Hence no one found out about the truth. However, despite that, the growing threat of the droid faction made other supernatural factions like the Celtic, Mayan and Aztec factions avoid them completely, resulting in them hiding in their own dimensional worlds. As a result, many of their respective leaders had to be called back so that they are not hunted by the droid faction. This hurt both Dagda, Ereshkigal, Ishtar and Quetzalcoatl the most, since they actually loved and cherished humanity. This caused further problems for the current supernatural alliance, as without them united, there was no chance that they would be able to fight against Malak and his droid faction. Additionally, the Kuo Academy explosion did bring several questions as to its survivors, primarily being Issei, Ika, Riaz and her peerage, Sona and her peerage, Ingvald and Dai's former peerage. As a result, the supernatural was forced to wipe any traces of their existence attending Kuo Academy from the town's memories. All in all, it was a real scheme of trauma and terror across locations. As trouble was brewing on one side, in another some form of happiness was growing on the other. Issei was seated in his room working on the final touches of releasing Crom Cruach, as Crom spoke. "Hey, take it easy, I am no hurry of being released," Crom spoke, worried that the biblical factions may come to take the gear away, as Issei spoke. "You mustn't be worried, old friend, soon you will breathe fresh air and roam the skies. I just need to work on some more of the seals, and that is it." Crom nodded as he spoke. "Hey Issei looked at the gear while trying to find the passcode of the seal. "Yeah?" Issei responded, to which Crom spoke. "I am sorry." Issei was surprised as he asked, "What for?" Crom responded to Issei. "For not having the power to stop Dai. For not having the right wisdom to stop him from becoming the person he is. A part of me wishes to destroy his soul and take his place as your brother. You wouldn't have such a bad life for so long." Issei shook his head and spoke. "No, Crom, you are not responsible for his choices. You couldn't have controlled his life even if you wanted to. That old man made sure of that, and he even gave you that curse, didn't he?" Crom nodded as he responded. "Many of my hosts were destined to be evil people. He wanted me to suffer even in death." Crom spoke angrily as Issei responded. "I am not going to lie, I am glad he is no longer alive. For someone that is supposed to be stated to love all creatures, he really hated dragons, so much so he created an abomination like Samel." Issei spoke with a shiver as both Drag and Crom also shivered at the mention of Samel. Issei managed to destroy Samel as a sort of mercy. He still remembered on how he encountered and destroyed him, as well as he heard his last words. "Thank you, dragon." Samel was created by several curses courtesy of the biblical god. He pitied his existence as nothing but a scapegoat for all the evil intentions of God, as Issei could pain, jealousy, suffering, and resentment from him. Samel's gratitude surprised Issei to no bounds. He never expected him to show gratitude to someone he despised, meaning he always wanted to die, and Issei fulfilled that wish of his. Regardless, it is a good thing that was one of the earliest good things that Hades did, was to reveal Samel to him. I was able to win against him that time, since my body was reconstructed by Great Radanophis back then. The good thing was that while I was taking credit for my actions, I was out there, preparing for any threats that would harm me and the factions back then. Dealing with Samel was one of them. Issei's tone changed to a bit of anger. Even when I did for them, I was insulted and humiliated, and seeing that they didn't care for me, that was the last straw. I refused to help them. Then I saw how corrupted they really are, using humanity for their own numbers, some without their choices, without even turning back. That angered me to no bound. Adding insult to injury, they think just because we are humans, we are entitled to serve them. Issei gives a frustrated sigh as he continued. "I am not going to lie, genocide was my last option. I believed as time passed they would change, then again, I am proven wrong." Issei speaks as Crom responds. "I know, and had I been a little selfless, we may be seeing a different reality." Crom speaks as Issei responds. "I doubt the supernatural in my world would change at this point, Crom. Only a select few have become better people, for instance Artemis. From a man-hating goddess to a man-tolerating goddess." Issei spoke the last part with a smile as Drake responded. "You also have faith in dragons, especially those that you can trust, for instance me." Her office. Issei nodded in agreement as he speaks. "And out of all of the dragons, you Drake is whom I trust the most, regardless of what happens." Drake smiled in response as he speaks. "I appreciate that. From the day you unlocked your gear, you have been more like a best friend than someone who viewed me as a tool, even offering release for me when you got the book." Issei nodded and responded. "I am aware, Drake. Now let's continue working on." Issei was about to speak when someone entered his room. It was Nyx, who spoke with a smile. "You have a moment?" Issei looked at her and spoke. "Sure, I do. You don't mind, do you, Crom?" Crom spoke with a grin. "I was not in a hurry anyway. Go spend some quality time with your girl." Issei had a red tint on his face, something that Nyx also had, as Crom spoke. "Emma, head to sleep, wake me up when you continue working on the gear." Crom was heard snoring as Drake commented. "Lazy ass dragon," Nyx retorted in response. "You're one to talk." Drake grew a tick mark, but he reeled it in, as Issei asked. "Is something the matter, Nyx?" Nyx looked at him with a neutral tone as she spoke. There is something that office has found. Nyx spoke with a worried tone as Issei became serious and responded. What's the matter? Issei asked, to which office spoke. Follow me. Issei nodded as he took the gauntlets with him and followed Nyx, not knowing that this secret would completely shock the Gremory family. Lucifuge Mansion, 12:30 p.m. Issei and Nyx soon reached the location where Artemis, Quinella, Charlotte, Valerie, Ingvald, Elizabeth and Gondal were waiting for him. Oh, I am glad you could make it, Artemis spoke with a smile, to which Issei looked at her and asked seriously. What are we looking at? Valerie was the one to answer. There was a hidden passage that was found in this mansion. I was passing here trying to learn some more magic that could help our goals, but then I found a hidden trapdoor. This led me to a secret room. Issei looked at her and spoke. Lead me there. Valerie nodded as she motioned everyone to follow her. As they did, she opened the trapdoor and followed inside. It was a dark corridor, which soon lit up, several flames lighting up the path, illuminating it. In front of them was a giant crystal revealing a woman inside. She was not properly visible. The crystal was purple in color. However, Issei could make it out who is in front of the group. He walked towards the crystal as he wanted to touch the crystal. He was suddenly pushed back as he felt some burning sensation on his hands. Are you alright? Nyx asked with concern as Issei shook his hand. The girls were also concerned for Issei as he spoke with an assuring tone. I am fine, ladies, was not expecting a magic barrier here. Issei raised his hand forward. This time he had prepared, he then thought. Every magic barrier is sort of like a puzzle. You have two ways of dealing with these puzzles. You can either brute force your way through breaking the said puzzle, or 2, analyzing and deconstructing the puzzle, thus solving it. I have a feeling that breaking the barrier would ruin any chances of wondering who that woman is. Is he? Ingvald asked, to which Gondal responded. He is analyzing and deconstructing the barrier that had burned him. He should be done soon enough. Issei soon opened his eyes. As the barrier has been dispelled, he soon saw the crystal as he spoke. Who exactly are you? Issei muttered as he looked at Valerie and asked. Do you know who this woman is? Valerie shook her head and responded. I do not. If I did, I would have told you. I even told you about this place. Issei looked at her and nodded as he spoke. Very well. Issei tried to analyze the crystal for a moment as he spoke. I see these are made from the crystals that are found in the Malebranche from the Aegir's territory. Elizabeth then asked. I don't understand. Issei then explained to her. The original 4 great Satans had created their own version of the 12 Longinus. These are the statues that are found in the underworld. In fact, Valerie and Ingvald's ancestors warned them of not unsealing the leader of the Malebranche. No matter what happens, the two mentioned were surprised by this. They never ever knew about this, as they asked, why don't we have any knowledge about this then? Valerie asked with surprise as Issei spoke. Because the great 4 Satans feared the power that they created. Issei spoke the last part with a mocking tone. It was because they didn't want the underworld to know about this, as they believed, even if the devils won the Great War, it would kill them, as they described in the documents, as extremely crazed combatants. The others listened to Issei's explanation as he continued. To put it in easier terms, think of it as Valerie's personality on steroids. Hey, Valerie angrily retorted as Issei spoke, looking at the crystal. I am not sure how to make out of this, but I think it is a very strong seal that prevents anyone from breaking it, and from what I know, I doubt Graphia knows about this, since after her marriage to Siskin Lucifer, she wouldn't have even detected this place, due to her duties. Issei spoke with a neutral tone as he spoke. Give me some time to analyze the seal. Until then, find if there are any interesting secrets the devils have hidden from the rest of the supernatural world. The girls nodded and did as they were asked to do so. Issei looked at the seal and spoke with a low tone. Who are you? Scene change. The girls were searching for the Lucifuge mansion, trying to find anything that would interest them in any way. They dealt with the servants without killing them and removing any trace of them. As they did, they found some interesting information. Girls, take a look, Artemis called out to her fellow sisters as they all came to her location. The girls soon joined Artemis as Quinella asked. What is this? Quinella asked as she looked at the information. She then looked at them and spoke. Are they? The Quinella spoke as Artemis responded with a smile. Indeed, this is the information of the 12 Malebranche. They have their own mentality and their own intentions, like their own beings. Despite this, they are known to be unhinged battle maniacs. No offense, Valerie. Valerie shook her head as Artemis spoke. From what these state, just a small part of their power could make them comparable to a being that even gods fear. Artemis spoke the last part with fear as Charlotte continued. That is why my ancestors wanted these things to be sealed. They were to never see the light of day, and from what information based on them state, their power made Surziches of all people transform into his true form, a being made of pure destruction. Even their names and abilities mentioned are akin to what the 12 Longinus are known to have, or more accurately the 12 original Longinus. Charlotte commented as Nyx spoke. What should we do? Should we use their powers? Nyx asked, to which Ingvald spoke. I don't think we should. Instead, we need to avoid unsealing these things. Just a part of its power made a Beelzebub descendant go unhinged. We must prevent this from happening. I believe we should let Issei make that decision. If he is able to control these beings, then we can easily gain more power. Nick spoke seriously, to which Ingvild nodded as she continued. Regardless, you are right, we can't let them roam this world, and worse, we can't let the current underworld or the current three Satans use their powers, they could potentially pose a problem. Ingvild and the girls agreed to their words. As they all went downstairs, they saw Issei working on the last of the seals that were on the crystals. Hey, did you find anything? Issei asked, to which the girls responded by their findings and wanted to let Issei know about what they should do with them. Perhaps we could have a usage for them, regardless of that we can't let them be free, perhaps I could find a use for them. I mean we already have enough strength to deal with our enemies, Issei spoke with a thoughtful tone, as Elizabeth spoke. I guess you are right. Speaking of which, how do you plan on unsealing the woman? Elizabeth asked. I have already analyzed the barrier magic made of the crystal, and now I am slowly and surely unsealing the crystal without harming the person inside, Issei explained as the girls nodded. He soon finished working on the crystal, as suddenly the crystal exploded, created a strong bright light, as suddenly a woman was revealed to be dropped from the skies. Athena is a beautiful, white-skinned young woman with below the knee-length silver hair, red eyes that have long eyelashes, glossy pink lips and a voluptuous trained body. Issei manages to carry her in a bridal manner. As he gently laid her on the floor, he checked her pulse. When he sensed it, he spoke. She is alive. The girl sighed in relief, as Ingvild suggested. We should take her to the bedrooms in one of the castle. The girls nodded as Issei carried her in a bridal manner as he took her to one of the rooms. She was still asleep. Issei looked at the girls asking. Any idea who she is and why was she imprisoned in a crystal? Issei asked the girls, primarily to Valerie, Charlotte, Quinella and Ingvild, all of whom had no idea on who she is, as Valerie spoke. We assumed you would know about her, even we have no clue as to who she is. Issei looked at her and he responded. I see. Issei then spoke in continuation. From what I can state, she seems to be awfully similar looking to Graphia, which means she has to be related to her. The girl then soon opened her eyes as she looked at her new guests. Her body was completely stiff, making her unable to move, minus her head. Hi. Issei spoke as the girl, she scanned her surroundings and was fearful seeing two people in the room. The angel G goddess. The girl spoke with fear laced in her voice. Issei understood who she was referring to, as Issei asked. Elizabeth, Artemis, for now wait outside the room, she knows nothing of the current events. The two girls looked at the girl's fearful expression and nodded. They felt sad, but they understood why she would have fear. Issei looked at the girl, she was still fearful as Issei spoke. I am not here to harm you, my name is Issei Haidu, and this is Nyx, Valerie Lucifer, Ingvild Leviathan, Charlotte Beelzebub and Quinella Asmodeus. The girl widened her eyes, seeing the four Satan descendants in her eyes, as she apologized. Forgive me for my condition, but I am not in a position to serve you, Lady Lucifer. The woman spoke with a bow, looking at Valerie as she responded with a smile. You mustn't worry, but first I need to know who you are and why were you in a crystal, and the one who rescued you was Issei Haidu, the current Red Dragon Emperor. Valerie pointed to Issei as the woman flinched. She remembered the brutal assault of the Red Dragon eons ago as she spoke. You're the Red Dragon Emperor? Issei nodded as he showed her the boosted gear. As she gulped, he can easily kill her if he wanted to as she spoke. My name is Ain Lucifuge, the youngest daughter of the Lucifuge family. It is nice to meet all of you, regardless. Ain spoke with a smile, as Issei asked. Then why were you in a crystal? Like, the seals were pretty strong, even for someone like me to break. Issei spoke, to which Ain responded. It is because of what happened in the Devil's Civil War. Issei nodded as he spoke. I see, so you were trapped in that crystal for more than 500 years. Ain widened her eyes as she asked in surprised. Has it been that long? Issei nodded as he explained the current situation of the underworld to her. As she nodded in understanding, she still was surprised that angels and fallen angels are working with him. Although Issei did hide several facts about what happened after the sealing of Trahexa. I see. Truth was that my father suffered from an illness, which tragically took his life. I had the same fate, with a different illness, fearing for my life. My brother crystallized me, slowing and freezing the illness. Ain spoke sadly as she continued. Graphian or Euclid talked about you in any way? Ain shook her head and spoke. It was because Euclid lied to the others that I passed away. I asked him to do this, as I did not want to see my sister feel sad. Issei nodded in understanding as he responded. I see. Ain spoke as she responded. The illness will take my life regardless. Now that you have unsealed me, I guess me dying off will be better. Issei was surprised by this as he spoke. But Ain shook her head and spoke. I have no reason to continue living. My sister thinks I am gone, and my brother is in prison for being a terrorist. Ain had tears in her eyes, as Issei and the others felt sad, to which Valerie spoke. Then why not live for us, Ain? Ain was surprised by this, as Issei spoke with a smile. I know how you feel, but you can live for us. I mean, you have the Lucifer descendants standing in front of your face, along with the 4 current satanic descendants. Why not join us? Issei asked, to which Ain responded. But even then, what use am I am bedridden, just like my father was. Issei spoke as he responded. I will cure the illness, Ain. Issei holds her hand, making her have a small blush. He senses the illness affecting her spinal cord, which prevented her from moving. This made sense as to why she was paralyzed. He knew what he had to do. He sensed the poison that was attacking her spinal cord. He started to remove them using his other sacred gear, which manifested into his hands. As soon as the poison was removed, he saw a blob of the poison in his palms. I see it is from the fly chimera. You know what you have to do, right? Charlotte nodded and neutralized the poison. Ain soon felt different. It felt like she could move her legs, as she exclaimed, I can move. Ain jumped to Issei and embraced him. Thank you, Red Dragon Emperor. Issei puts his hands up, as Nyx, Quinella and Charlotte glare at him with jealousy, as aura radiates from their bodies, with Ingvild pouting in jealousy, and Valerie giving an amused look. Gondal also had a look of annoyance. Ain soon realized and split up from him as she spoke. I apologize, I got too close. Issei nodded and spoke. Try walking. Ain nodded as she got up and started to walk. She struggled as Issei helped her up, and she was able to walk normally. She soon could walk for a while, as Issei spoke. Listen, go with Gondal, and she should do a checkup on your magic, to see if there are any problems. Ain nodded with a smile, as Gondal spoke with a smile. Come with me, Ain. The two then teleported out of there as Nyx spoke. That was awfully kind of you, Issei sighed as he spoke. Yeah, regardless, I wonder how Grafia would react knowing her sister was alive this whole time. Issei spoke with an innocent tone on his face, as he then asked. Speaking of sisters, how is our only survivor of the god tribe doing? Issei asked the girls, to which Quinella responded. She wishes to have her old self be erased completely, having no purpose to live for any longer. She does not have a reason to pursue her life. She hates herself for even attacking you, and wants to be erased completely from everything. Issei ponders on this. He wonders whether he should do that, since unlike these morons, she did not torment him. Regardless, she did look down upon humanity and other non-god tribe beings, and that was something he couldn't ignore, as he spoke. I see. Well, tell her that her wish was never going to be fulfilled. She made her choice, and this is the consequence, and now she is going to be nothing more than a pawn for this war. Issei spoke seriously, to which Nyx responded. Some of those gods were even more annoying, prideful and misogynistic beings, even more so than some of the Greek gods. It's no wonder you wanted them exterminated. Ingvild responded with agreement. I agree, they look down upon me because I am a devil. Just cause they can create life doesn't mean they are superior. Like it was so annoying hear some of them talk. Ingvild spoke with an annoyed tone as Valerie agreed to her. Either way, let's head back. We can see to it that things will be getting better as time passes. The factions are even in greater turmoil with the complete annihilation of the god tribe, and worse, they think twice to pester me. The group nodded as Issei soon teleported them out of their area. Scene change. Time skip. A few days later. Hidu residence. 9:30 AM. If you guys are here thinking I will fight your battles, then you are wrong. Issei looked at the leaders who had teleported outside his house and came in like normal people. He reluctantly let them in, since he wanted to see their suffering firsthand. Despite this, Issei was getting more and more annoyed by their pleas, as they were desperate for his help. Malak and his droid faction have relentlessly wiped out the god tribe and the hero clan, leaving no trace of survivors. We beseech you, please help us. Surziches spoke with a bow, as Issei looked amused seeing the Crimson Satan on his knees. Like I said, you lost your chance. Suck it up and perish for all I care. I am telling you again, not my monkey, not my circus. Issei walked inside the room, as Zu spoke with an angered tone. Malak is wiping us out, yet here you are enjoying our plight. Do you really hate us that much, Lord Issei? Do you really want us to suffer that much? Do you hate the supernatural that much? Zu spoke, to which Issei responded with a grin of his own. I do not, but I hardly care for you people. Even if you die, I wouldn't even bother father-in-law. Issei put the last part with a mocking tone, which angered Zeus to no bounds. He was aware that both his daughters are betrothed to Issei, as the Red Dragon Emperor enjoyed seeing him suffer even more. He walked inside, to which the leaders could only swallow in defeat. I told you this was a bad idea. Convincing someone like him is a waste of our time. Shiva spoke, garnering everyone's attention as he spoke seriously. We lost our chance at listening to the right person, and we listened to Dai. Dai was right, Please Shiva Dono, I request you to not speak his name. I know what he said, and his words will always haunt us. Surziches spoke sadly. Issei just wants to see them suffer, and he could care less what happens, as Azazel spoke. Let's head back and prepare to what's come. All we can do is go down. Fighting him helping us will be a miracle. Azazel spoke, to which all the leaders nodded and headed back. They could only hope that Issei would help them in the future. Meanwhile, Issei was inside his room taking a breather as Nyx spoke. You know they won't stop until you either wipe them out or reveal yourself as the traitor. Issei looked at her and nodded. But even then, they just keep asking, demanding for my help. It's just so frustrating that even now they Nyx immediately embraced him, as she speaks. Don't let your anger get the better of you, you and I both know that their time will come, you must keep your anger in check. Issei looked at her and nodded, as he asks, can we stay like this for a while? Nyx sighed as she spoke. You needn't ask me for this, Ice, you don't have to ask a permission for matters like this, just know that we are together until the very end. Issei gave a nod, as he spoke. Thanks Nyx. Issei looked at her and asked, say, I wonder, what would have happened if I said, screw the rules and just released you right then and there, 1.5 years ago. Nyx herself pondered on this, as she widened her eyes and responded, I'd say that you should have bided your time and released me when nobody would dare to oppose you, Ice. Regardless, I knew you would one day release me from prison, and truth be told, you are the reason for my living. Issei nodded as he split from her. He then asked, I wonder what my life would have been had I not met you and the other girls. It would have been dull and lonely. You are my biggest blessing, and the others, they are also special to me, but no matter what, you will always be my most prized. Nyx had a blushing look on her face as she playfully smacked Issei. Stop being so corny, Issei laughed it off and responded. I guess. Nyx then spoke with a smile. Well, regardless, we should probably lay low for a while, settle for a moment, and you must spend time with the other girls. You should know that Artemis, Elizabeth, Miyuki and even Athena have feelings for you. Issei was surprised by the last part, as he asks. The first three I can understand, but Athena, you're kidding, right? Nyx shook her head as she spoke with a smile. She does have feelings for you, she may not show it, but she has feelings for you. I have seen how she often acts and sneaks onto your bed. You should know she has developed feelings for you, regardless of the necklace you gave her. You should have a talk with her sometime when she is free. Confront her about her feelings. Artemis doesn't mind, as she also knows, and the other girls will understand that Athena has feelings for you. Issei sighs as he speaks. I understand, I will talk to her. Issei gets up from his seat and heads to Athena's room, where Athena was present, to which Nyx spoke with a smile. All the best, my Ice. Issei heads to Athena's room. As he looks at her, she was trying out something. She had accidentally left her door open. She wore wearing a green bikini with gold jewelry. The gold jewelry had emeralds. Her skin was completely being shown, and it was glowing, indicating the corruption was at its last stages. Athena widened her eyes and had a flustered look. When she turned around, she was shocked to see Issei of all people that looked at her body like that. Please don't look at me like this. Issei nodded. He had a flustered look on his face as Issei asked, why did you dress like this then? Athena did not know how to respond to the question, as she answered. I have no answer to this. Athena spoke truthfully. She just felt like trying the dress, but she never truly understood why, but she had a feeling for who this dress was for. It was for Issei. She already had feelings for Issei ever since he had accepted her in his house. He never tried anything with her, giving her enough space and patience. He even let Hestia visit her. This was especially surprising due to the fact that he detested the Greek faction, primarily Zeus. I see, can you please sit down, Athena? Athena looked at Issei, and she nodded. Athena soon took a seat and asked, is something the matter? Issei then asked, is it true, are you really in love with me? Athena had a bigger blush, as she soon then settled down and spoke while looking away. Yes, I have fallen for you, Athena spoke while keeping her hand on her chest as she speaks. I fell for you when you gave me a home after Zeus abandoned me to save his own skin. You gave me a place to live for, allowed Hestia to meet me regardless of your hatred of Zeus. You still tolerated her presence. Even Artemis has started to fall for you. Athena spoke with a truthful look. It was uncertain whether she was being corrupted or whether it was real emotions that she was showing, genuine love that she had for Issei. Partner, her feelings are genuine, Drake spoke with a smile, as Issei mentally nodded in agreement. Hey Athena, what is your thoughts on Malak and his droid faction? Athena widened her eyes as she spoke. A small part of me hates him. I am not going to lie. He is one of the reason why my life is like that. I hate myself for saying this, but I would be still an Olympian goddess. Regardless, I don't blame him. Zeus used me and Artemis as pawns for saving his skin and the Olympians. Athena started to tear up as Issei embraced her and spoke with a smile. SHH, it's okay, you are here. He won't come near you. Athena sniffled as she spoke with a tearful tone. Please let me be by your side, Lord Issei. Athena's eyes glowed purple for a split second when she said Lord Issei. Issei rubbed her back. I am here, no worries. Issei spoke with a smile as he looked at Athena. She has suffered a lot, even more so than Zeus did. Athena, it's alright, you mustn't hide things like these from me. Your suffering is something I can't ignore. I told you before, didn't you? Yeah, Athena split up with Issei as he spoke. Either way, you certainly look amazing in that clothing, not gonna lie. Athena looked down seeing the attire she was in as she blushed, however this time she gave a smile as Issei spoke. Needless, if you were given the chance, would you join the droid faction? Athena then spoke truthfully. I am not sure, Zeus could die, but I am not sure about the rest of Olympus. Issei took a time as he continued. What if I told you the one you were talking to was the de facto leader of the droid faction? Athena widened her eyes and exclaimed in disbelief. No, please tell me this is a bad joke. Issei shook his head and spoke. I am the one who created Malak and made sure that he remains the face of the faction, but in reality I am the one that is calling the shots. Athena looked down, as tears fell from her eyes, she felt betrayed in a way, as she asked, why? Issei shook his head as he spoke. You know why, right? My past was the first wake-up call. I had. Athena nods, and then I saw how humanity was treated by the supernatural. Their relationship with them has not changed, they still look down upon, they treat us as pawns for their war. Then you saw how the supernatural wanted my alliance despite what they have done to me, they still wanted to use me as a pawn for their goals. I understand if you hate me for this, but Athena cuts him off as she speaks. I understand your reasoning, your anger is justified, what they did to you was unforgivable, but even then how can one have this much hatred for someone? Issei looks at her and speaks. It was because I never had a happy moment in the last almost 15 years. I was strife with humiliation and anger every single day. My presence was hated by everyone, thanks to lies and deceit spread by my ex-brother. My own parents refused to love me, ignored and even abused me when the lies reached them. I tried defending myself, but they refused to believe me, and truth be told, it's hard to feel love for someone if you never had a proper relationship with them. Lies broke my family apart, the supernatural made a bad situation even worse. Athena widened her eyes, she felt pity and sadness for Issei as he continued. I hate them, Athena, I hate them all for ruining my life. Despite what I did for them, they never cared for me. I broke my bones and bled for them, yet no one came for me. They were partying on their victories, laughing at my suffering, and I will make sure to laugh when they suffer. Athena felt even more pity and guilt for asking this question as she spoke. I am sorry. Issei widened his eyes as he asked, what for? For asking you a question that would remind you your trauma. And Issei cuts her off and gives her a smile. No, it's time I told you the truth. Even Artemis has joined me willingly after seeing what her father has done. Athena was surprised by this as she spoke. I never knew. Is that why she started to fall for you? From what I recollect, she hated men once upon a time. Issei nodded as he spoke. Yes, all I told her is to change her mindset of the other gender, and this is what happened. She became a better person. Athena was surprised by this, as she then gave a smile. I see, thank you for making my sister into a better person, and I wouldn't mind joining you, but before that there is something I need to do. What? Athena walked close to him and kissed him on the lips, taking Issei by surprise. She then pulled Issei close to her before completely making out with him. Issei still processed what had happened. After a while, Athena split from him as she spoke. This was my first kiss, now I fully yours. Athena spoke with a blushing look as Issei had a red face. He was completely off guard with the kiss as she spoke. And I am letting even my pantheon know of this. I could care less what they think. I want to spend the rest of my life with the one I love. Athena was about to teleport to the Greek pantheon as Issei spoke with worry. Athena, your clothing. Athena realized this as she spoke. Oh right, sorry. Athena spoke clearly embarrassed before she returned back to her normal clothing belonging to the ancient Greek era. Athena soon teleported out of there, leaving Issei blushing. He never expected Athena of all people to completely fall for him, as he soon walked out of the room to give Nyx the news. Scene change. Malak's base, 12 p.m. I see, so another one has joined us, Malak asked with a smile, to which Issei nodded as he looked at Gondal and spoke. Speaking of which, what happened to Roswis and Ain? Gondal spoke with a serious tone. I have been keeping tabs on my granddaughter, she is still loyal to the Norse mythology, and Ria's peerage. I will soon begin my attack on her and get her to your side. Issei nodded as Gondal continued. As for Ain, she is completely fine, the virus may weaken her for a while, but she should be able to use magic in a day or two at most. Issei nodded as he spoke. Regardless, how have you been doing, Gondal? Gondal was surprised by the question as she asked. I am fine, Lord Issei. Why do you ask? Issei responded. Considering what you went through, I am just happy that you are doing alright and are now on board with us. Gondal shook her head and spoke with a genuine smile. I would have been purposeless had it not been for you being there when I needed you the most. Gondal then spoke sadly. I should have listened to the other Gondal when she warned me about Artemis and Elizabeth completely having a mental breakdown given how loyal they once were and how they were treated, and now Athena, the factions have really fallen too far. It's the hard truth that I should have swallowed a long time ago. Issei nodded as he spoke. It took time for me to also see the truth. Humanity blindly following these gods and other supernatural beings, these beings pretending to be human. It's just appalling to see that no matter what I did, they would never change. Issei spoke with a sigh as Gondal and Malak nodded in agreement. Either way, how is their financial situation going on? Malak then spoke with a smile. The stock market of the supernatural companies are at an all-time low, share prices are declining, and soon enough many of the investors will be putting lawsuits against these companies, making them even more in debt. Soon they will lay off workers and the company will collapse. That is good, very good. Tell Lucas to get more information about them and their situation. When he gets it, ask him to send it to us. Malak gave a nod as he spoke. So when do we begin our next attack? Malak asked, to which Issei responded. We will lay low for a while and gather even more forces. After that I want to attack the Norse. Due to what they did to Gondal. Gondal was all the more ready for her revenge against Odin and the Norse for what they did to her. However, I have a better plan. I want to cripple their sacred gear users. You know who our next targets are, right? Malak understood this as he spoke. You intend to go after Team/Dog and the hero faction. Issei gave a nod as he spoke. We can go after them, since some of their users will pose a problem to our goals, or we can go after the Norse. Then I will reveal who is the real enemy. I really want to see the look on Suzaku's face when she realizes that I am the one responsible for Lavinia's condition. If we attack the Norse, Issei spoke with a grin, to which Malak nodded in understanding as he spoke. So we are at the beginning of the endgame, Issei then responded. Indeed, the faction's endgame has begun. Issei spoke with a grin as the two nodded in agreement. This will begin the fall of the factions, which will happen in a few weeks. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.